So hello everyone. Hey, hi Neeraj. Hi Sangita ji.
Hi, good evening, Deepak ji.
Good to see you, and thanks for all the participants who took efforts to join for this session. Thanks a lot. So today's session is the first session of a very interesting concept which we are running. We call it Agriculture Roundtable. Now, Agriculture Roundtable was created with a very simple mindset that can we identify some of the very critical topics and create a group of those global leaders who are working on those areas and bring them on a common platform where they can interact and they can ensure they share their insights and their experiences on this platform. So we would be having 7 summit as part of this Agriculture Roundtable Web Series. The first one, as all of you know, is about irrigation. We selected irrigation for a very simple reason, because we believe that the very critical aspect of agriculture is irrigation. It does not just impact the agriculture, but it impacts the whole society. Unfortunately, if we see, agriculture is among the human activity which is withdrawing 70% of total freshwater withdrawals across the globe. Coming back home closer to India, it is as high as close to 90%. Irrigation has always been challenged. That's why you'll find that in continents like Africa, where the irrigated land out of total cultivated land is around 6%, or Latin America, where it is around 14%. We are lucky in Asia, it is around 37%, predominantly because of China and India. For example, India is close to 50% of our agricultural land is irrigated. But it has also created a lot of challenges, because easy availability of water led to those practices which were not very effective and efficient in water management. And today we are having a scenario where in countries like India, Vietnam, Indonesia, even China, that we are having cities after cities running dry of water. So water conservation has become a very, very critical aspect for a very simple reason that if we don't save this very critical resource, we would end up ensuring that livelihood of those who live at the base of the pyramid would be lost. Because still, more than 70% of those at the base of the pyramid are dependent on agriculture. Good agriculture practices, including micro irrigation, has been a very strong technology across the globe, which has given tremendous results. Depending on the crop, from 200% to 450% is an increase in yields when the land is irrigated through micro irrigation. But unfortunately, still, if we talk about the total coverage of micro irrigation, we are not even in double digit in most of the countries. Now, that's why we are having some of the leading lights who would be talking about how we can ensure that we irrigate more land in a more responsible manner to ensure we give to the next generation a world which is not deprived of water. So with that, I would like to introduce our first guest. So our first guest is Laura Rastovac. Laura is the marketing director of Meteor Systems, which is a family business whose horticulture knowledge goes back for generations. It was born from the need to improve cultivation processes through innovation and modern technology. They developed the water technology of the plant in the substrate during the last 25 years. She has been working with the Meteor system for more than 2 decades now and has experienced this process up close. Her tasks have been mainly to share Meteor systems knowledge worldwide and to connect people and companies. She is responsible for marketing activities around the new products and services that meet the need for global horticulture solutions. Meteor system is one of the very highly respected, innovative and technology-driven company based out of Netherlands. So I would like to give floor to Laura, please.
To talk about this topic, especially in the field of sustainable use of irrigation water. Let me first give a short introduction of Meteor Systems. Meteor Systems is engaged in the design and production and development of steel growing gutters and drip irrigation. And it's in a controlled environment. So like large-scale greenhouses, outdoor, semi-outdoor, but also indoor farming. We exist for 25 years, so our knowledge and our experience of our team goes way back in the traditional Dutch horticulture, agriculture, and the most important thing is that we managed in all those years to develop a sustainable drip irrigation, to use the water efficient and also environmental friendly, with less environmental impact. And the goal is basically to maximize the food production and to minimize against the minimalization of environmental impact. This is achieved by working close together with professional growers in the field, but also work together with leading companies in the agricultural business and worldwide. And the way it goes is that every time a grower comes to us and say, well, we have a problem with the water of our plant, we try to brainstorm with other companies and other growers for how can we invent or develop a solution that everybody benefits. Yes, this leads to innovations in the field of water technology and to minimize the use of irrigation water and to reuse the excess water. And these innovations and these technical solutions is beneficial for the horticultural market worldwide. And I hope by this presentation that I can, and by sharing our knowledge in this 10 minutes, I can contribute to where you stand and the ambitions where you want to go in the area of irrigation water. So let me tell you briefly something about the history, because I think that's also very special of Meteor Systems. You said that we are a family-owned business, that we not only exist for 25 years, but the founder of the company has his experience goes generations back, because his grandparents in the beginning of in the 1900s were growing tomatoes. Then his grandparents took over and they built a greenhouse above it to control the climate more. And at the end of the 70s, the founder take over the business, and he was young and ambitious, and he thought, well, I want to do more with the tomato plant, make it more efficient. And that's when he started Basu, a company. He bought his first molding machine and was starting producing drip irrigation. And at the end of the 80s, some mid-80s and 80s, he made a partnership with Plastro Israel at the time. And nowadays they are also a real good partner of us, and they're known as Rivulis. They began to expand drip irrigation in the Netherlands. It was a success because the water could be more, how do you say it? My English is not so very good. You could precisely give the plants the amount that he needs, and also on nutrition. So with working close together with professional growers, at the end of the 90s, a tomato grower came with a problem. He saw that the water was becoming really expensive in the Netherlands. And they also foresaw in the future that there will be a water problem on a global scale. So they wanted to do something with the water that goes directly in the soil. The founder and the growers they first started to grow tomato plants on steel gutters above the ground. So the drip irrigation could be installed easily longitudinal next to the gutter, and the plants were standing above. So on the substrate. So the drain water was being collected in the gutter, and the drain water could be reused. And it was not only a sustainable way of the use of irrigation water, but it was also less damaging for the environment, because the pesticides and the fertilizers didn't come into the soil. It turned out to be a great success, and worldwide many companies followed this. We started to expand also our partnerships with large-scale greenhouse builders, companies that offers turnkey projects, but also professional growers worldwide became more familiar with us. And we had a good network, and we could brainstorm every time. And because we're a manufacturer and we make we make our own things, the combination with the partnerships made it that we made different systems. Later I will show pictures, because it's better. Normally I would show pictures here, but now it's online. I will show afterwards the picture. And that was briefly the history, but more important are our current innovations in the field of water technology. So because we're worldwide, it's become really everywhere in the world. You see, every country has another climate. Every country has another soil, has another culture, has another. So we were constantly faced with challenges, and we eventually developed the mini air and the mini tunnels. And the mini air is our plastic covers above the outdoor cultivation ground. And that construction is to protect outside crops against bad weather conditions like heavy rain, hagel, wind. And we still developing the mini air, because now we made it automated, so the roof can open, so the air can easily be controlled inside, and also the temperature at night. So that's also a good success. And we invent all those things with growers in the field and other leading companies. We also are active in the deep flow technique. A couple of years ago, we developed a hydroponic floating raft. That's for the cultivation of leafy greens and herbs. But also the strawberry propagation tray. So those are trays to propagate your strawberry plants outside, but from the ground again. And now our latest development is in a greenhouse. So above are the strawberry plants, and underneath the gutters are the propagation of the strawberries. I will later on show also pictures of that. And even we're right in the middle of working together with ENGIE, that's a big energy company, yes, in the Netherlands. And that is to cultivate under solar panels. And that's a very nice project to be a part of. Yeah, and we're still working and developing and innovating, and yeah, we see also the future developments as a challenge, because nowadays it's more data driven, the use of sonars, sensors, of drones, of computer, smart intelligence environment, artificial intelligence. So the culture, it's changing. The how do you say it? The developments. And for example, we have now a good customer of us, Mark van Aert. He cultivates strawberries on our gutter system with a drip irrigation under the mini air, so it's semi outside. And he's working on a project. He put sensors and drones to monitor the crops and to collect data, to improve also the use of irrigation water. So he would like to know exactly at what time in the morning, which climates, but also the evaporation of the water in the plant and what comes out. And he's collecting all the data, so he knows more about how to use and when to use the water. And yeah, that's nice to see such projects with good customers of us. Yeah, that's basically a little bit what I want to tell. I think more important are the pictures, so you can see what I mean.
Laura, if you can share your presentation, that would be awesome.
Yeah. I will share my presentation. I never did that before with...
No problem. You would be having a button called share screen on the bottom. You have to just click it. It will give you all your windows and select one with the presentation. Okay, Zoom. Yeah, I have to... yeah. I have... it says... of laten zelf later. Okay, sorry. And yes, I think I had to think something in my laptop. This is the first time I use Zoom. And am I sharing yet? No. Let me see. I don't know where you are. In the meantime, for audience, actually, Lola come from Netherlands and they are open source world. So, right, you know, they use very different systems. And but I insisted that, like, you know, we can. Yeah, but I don't see you anymore. I don't see. So on the bottom, you'll be having a share screen. So when you press it, it's a green button. Yeah, green button, share screen. Yes. I am. Desktop. Super. Yeah. So now just you have to open the PPTX. Yes. And I think it will open now. Yes.
Now to play. Do you see the screen now? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because this I want to show you this picture because it was 1998 in Amsterdam with the partnership with Plastro. So basically, this is where it all started, where Meteor Systems is now. That's what I want to show you. This is our factory. This is just a small part of a factory. We have like three companies worldwide. One big factory that's in the Netherlands. That's this one. I think we have like 150 persons working here. And you also see in our factory that it's being more data driven. And we also work with new technology, but that's not what we're talking about. Focus, Laura. Okay, and that are the steel gutters that we produce on site. So everywhere in the world we go with our machines. We have like 30 machines worldwide. So this is a greenhouse tomato system. So every crop needs a different system. This is a movable growing system for strawberries. So what we did is you can shuffle one gutter totally aside that you have more room to come through. And this is the latest project in China we did for the roses. And I'm also active in the field of legal cannabis. This is in North America. And we still have to learn a lot about the crop marijuana because it was always underground, but also challenging project. And this is what I told about the tray field propagation. So above you see the gutters, there can be strawberries cultivated. And underneath is the propagation field. It can also be outside. You see, it's also above the ground. This is also a way for outdoor cultivation to collect the water and to reuse it. This is the mini air I talked about, the plastic cover that protects crops against heavy weather conditions. These are the solar panels you see above the solar, and underneath are also the strawberry system. These are our floating rafts. This deep water culture. We are blow molding this right now, but maybe we can. We also have 3D printing machines. And we're active in the field of the vertical farming and indoor farming. Yeah, that's quite very interesting because that's really sustainable and also I think beneficial for the environment, for people, for the food production, and these are our three companies. We have one in China, one in North America, and the headquarters is in the Netherlands. So I want to say thank you very much for listening. We are open for worldwide partnerships. In the past, we did also some projects in India, in Africa, Asia, but we want to learn more because we want to learn more about the climate, the soil. So we are really thrilled to learn more about growing sustainable in your countries. So you never know how life goes. And that's my story. Thank you.
Yeah, so great, Laura. Very interesting perspective, and thanks for sharing. I can understand when we had a first talk, when you said about the language, I believe that developing countries need technology which is being developed with so much of, I'll say, passion and so much of experience. And in fact, I've been a big fan of Sico Mansholt, right, your first agriculture minister, and the vision of, again, the government of Netherlands, where you're already talking about climate resilient, and in some of the solution which you bring on table, like which reduces not just the use of water, but also ensure that the agriculture is more sustainable. So the whole idea of growing more with less, which is like, I would say that was put on table by Netherlands. I believe the rest of the world should also go about it. So thanks a lot. It was pleasure, and because we are running a little bit of short on time, so well, definitely all the audience can text the question in the chat boxes, and we'll definitely send it across to Laura, and based on the response, we would share with all of you. And as Laura rightly said, that she's open for partnerships in this part of the world, and I believe more and more Indian farmers should be able to leverage the solutions with Meteor system is offering. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Laura. Pleasure.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. So let's talk about Laura. You have to just share the screen on the top of your.
Yes, oh, yeah. Sorry.
Perfect. No problem. Pleasure is mine. So thanks, Laura. So the next speaker we are having is Prateep Basu. Now Prateep is like I'll say that I can go and talking about him for maybe the 20 minutes, which is allotted time for him to speak. Right? He's in a nutshell co-founder and CEO of SatSure. Right? Person who understands both business and technology. Being an ex-scientist with ISRO, he brings a lot of understanding of space technology to the ground. That's agriculture. They have done fabulously well over past few years, and have been following the great work SatSure has been doing. So without coming in between the audience and Prateep, floor is yours, and rock everyone, brother.
Thank you so much, Deepak, for the kind words. Let me share my screen quickly. So thanks everyone for joining in. It's my pleasure to be speaking to this very interesting forum on irrigation. My next 20 minutes would be a bit more on the technology infrastructure. Unlike many of you, we are the company working primarily on the technology component, not directly with farmers. But let me show you how we have been adding that value by keeping our focus very niche and on something which is definitely a very important let's say factor in scaling precision irrigation. So I hope my screen is visible, Deepak.
Okay. Yes, Prateep.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. So let me give a quick background about SatSure. We started 4 years back only, and we are a team of 55 people, primarily based out of Bangalore, but with our offices in Switzerland, UK, and Australia. What we are doing at SatSure is essentially leveraging our core competency within the team of making data from space consumable. Now, space data in agriculture today has become quite widespread. When we were starting up in 2016-17, it was still under the scanner of, oh, how does it work? What's the accuracy? Have you validated it in places? Today, less number of people are asking this question. That's because the value of using data with space has been kind of understood. However, there are challenges around making it easily consumable. You can't send an image to a farmer; he won't understand anything. You can't just send him something, something like a basic analysis to the farmer. Even not to a farmer, if you are sending it to, sharing it with someone who is servicing the farmer, they may find it difficult to interpret. So hence, it becomes very important to have a very combined or multi-sensor approach to get to what we call as a decision intelligence. The ability to make decisions without having to go for an expert advice. Now that is achieved by combining different data sets and building proprietary models, not just a service layer but also application layer, which is what we are doing at SatSure, and bucketing it out into different kinds of decision support systems in the form of web dashboard, mobile applications, and also allowing our enterprise customers to integrate the APIs along to see along with their field data how this entirety of their landscape can be monitored. So at SatSure, we are working actually more than agriculture sector. We work a lot in the property, roads sector as well. But the common thing that connects us and this forms the basis of the company is how climate change is impacting both agriculture as well as every other sector around us. So in the context of this meeting, I'll be focusing on one very important data product that could have a revolutionary impact or disruptive impact on the farm irrigation sector, which is our high resolution surface soil moisture data set. Now, soil moisture is one of the most intrinsic data set required in agriculture. You see a farmer, you talk to him, you understand that, oh, okay, he is making his decision to plant based on the moisture availability in the soil. And obviously, if it's a rain-fed area, this particular parameter becomes even more important. And unfortunately, soil moisture is something that using normal remote sensing techniques, it is not possible to retrieve that at a, let's say, root zone level. However, there are different types of satellites called microwave, both active and passive microwave satellites, through which soil moisture retrieval is possible. But the problem there is that, number one, it is either very coarse resolution, meaning that you will have one pixel at a 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer level, and it could be daily data, which is great, but then it is not usable from a farming perspective. It is more usable from a policy making perspective. Whereas you may have a high resolution data of soil moisture, like at a 20 meter or 100 meter level, but it is at a 10-day frequency, which means again it is unusable because you don't have the daily data here. So what at SatSure we have done is essentially used a combination of different satellites, applied our own proprietary built model, which is patented now, to retrieve a daily farm level soil moisture data, meaning that we have essentially used AI to make satellite and IoT in space. Now, what it does is gives you at every on a daily basis the extent of the percentage soil moisture at a 10 centimeter depth of the soil. As you can see in this GIF, there is a regional level changes which is mapped as per the stage of the crop. So one is at a vegetative stage, one is at a pre-sowing stage, other is at a post-harvest stage, and the same you can see on at a farm level what is the variation. And the variation also, you could see this is 2 seasons. The trend is very interesting to look at. It goes up, reaches a peak and then comes down, which is what you would expect from a cropland. And we, before filing the patent and making it commercially available, did a lot of validation, different types of validation with ground truth, that I would say satellite data, validation with IoT derived point data, and there are certain challenges around it. It still doesn't work in hilly regions, but it works. We have seen that it works about 80% with 80% accuracy in flatlands. This is the current state of the work that we have now. Given this technology background, and also we have done some correlation with different rainfall data. As you can see, the leftmost part of this the sensitivity analysis, the top bars are the rainfall bars, and the trend here is the soil moisture trend. You can see as there is rainfall, the soil moisture is always going up. When there is lack of rainfall, there is the soil moisture dips, but again it goes up, which shows that these are irrigated areas, which is what the rolling correlation between soil moisture and rainfall profile shows. So it is very easy for us today to sit anywhere in the world and identify which farms are irrigated and which farms are not, and people would understand how important that is from a planning perspective and from a ops perspective. So all of that obviously translates into different kinds of use cases, crop insurance, water budgeting, resource management. But from precision irrigation perspective, when we looked at it, we saw that one of the more important things to identify was the crop stage, because the water requirement, crop water requirement, is very much dependent on the stage of the crop. Now, if a farmer has to be at the farm to identify the crop stage, then he can himself do the irrigation as well. Why do you need remote irrigation? And why do you need him to also work? Why do you need him to fill in the stage at all? The idea is to do precision irrigation to save water, right? You have to estimate the exact water requirement basis the soil moisture and basis the crop stage. So the crop stage identification is something that we already have been doing as part of our work with the insurance sector, where from the time it is sown, when it is heading, harvesting, different stages, emergence, flowering, all of those based on the remote crop phenology modeling, where we have collected millions of data points over the years, and we are able to identify farm by farm level, as you can see here, on every 10-day basis, what stage of the crop is there and which crop is there. Now, if you combine the soil moisture and the crop stage irrigation, therein starts creating a technology infrastructure that didn't exist before. And this is where our collaboration with Cisco comes in. So this is a snapshot from a white paper that was released of how we are essentially combining our tech platform and proprietary models capabilities now with IoT companies who are providing the sensors where you want to irrigate the farms remotely. You don't want any manual intervention. You have to estimate the amount, the soil moisture which is coming at a particular time. So for us, the daily soil moisture will come at 10 a.m. and from the IoT device we will get continuous, maybe you can set it at any frequency. We usually take two or three readings per day. But what it does is, by combining the sensor and the satellite data along with the overall remote crop monitoring aspect, we are able to scale the precision irrigation that is done by today IoT sensors, meaning that essentially you can create IoT-like data, IoT-like precise data, not a 80% accurate satellite data, but a 95+% accurate data by having less number of devices, much less number of devices on the farm that are connected to our platform. And that is what we are today working out with different state governments, water departments, where it's a complete stack of different sensors, as you can see at the bottom layer, which is running on cloud as well as data center, with application layer that goes into crop disaster management. For example, floods happen, so that indicators, triggers, and a complete command and control center approach. And again, I am speaking from a very enterprise technology perspective, not a farmer perspective, because that's the kind of work we are doing. And to enable this work, all it required was to build the technology, backend technology infrastructure, the software and the hardware integration here. So again, as part of this opportunity to present to everyone, I would like to again invite people to talk to us for collaborations. We are not an IoT company; we are a pure play tech and modeling company, and we would love to work with you to assess whether we can work, integrate your stack into our platform and help you not only scale your business, but also create impact which goes directly to the farmers, because today we cannot create that alone. And I know there are a lot of companies who are working on this, but the scope of these companies always gets limited because of the nature of the technology that you're adopting. And that is the combined objective, is that the farmer wins, and for all of us. And for that, I think the key thing is building that ecosystem to enable this. So that's about it from me. Thank you so much for your attention and the opportunity given to me. So we are a company, as just a wrap up, we are a company which has been today recognized for the innovation that we are doing on the technology. And we are definitely looking to bring that innovation at a business level as well, and come with a deep experience in space tech, agriculture, and finance. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Prateep. Pretty precise. to the point, and it was awesome. I hope you are okay for a couple of questions. We have some time.
Yes, I can see the questions from Prakash Rao sir and Susant.
Yeah. So before going to those, my first question for you would be challenge with Indian agriculture, talking about Indian context, is that the on ground, right, availability of data is so patchy, right? How do you come out with that solution? You being a data scientist, right? And just few years back when we had some discussions on satellite technology and all that, things were not that advanced. But now, do you think that the satellite is with a little bit of ground truthing with IoT sensors and all that is a complete package? The technology is advanced sufficiently?
Yes, so it depends, Deepak, on the use case that we are speaking of. So, for example, pure satellite would have, let's say 3-4 years back, would still have sufficed the needs of public policy making, maybe bankers, maybe even up to insurance. But for it to be made meaningful and accurate to a level where a farmer can be provided advisories based on satellite, yes, the ecosystem that got built, agri-tech ecosystem, we are living the the entire story, right? So that has definitely helped in accelerating the amount of data that we are able to collect in order to continuously retrain and build more and more accurate models. And it's not just the ground truth data, because you can actually have errors in collecting that. GPS errors might be there, some person data entry error might be there, but then you also have multi-sensor, different kind of sensors. So there's so many companies like Fasal, Krishi, Antara, Soil Sense. They are today having their stations deployed across multiple geographies. So the idea is to work collaboratively, work together. That okay, we get something from you, you get something from us. Together we grow. So that's the approach, and I think that has struck people, and that's why I would say the maturity today has gotten to a different level than it was previously, because the ecosystem was missing.
Sure, Prateep, just before we go to the next question, a small request. Can you stop sharing so that people can see you? Because in a webinar, they only see what is being, So you're having an awesome face, right? You're a handsome man. So let people see that as well. So Prateep, that brings me to the second question. Actually, part of it has been asked that actually, how good satellites are for the soil moisture, right? I would add a little bit of further on that aspect. Right, that the superficial moisture, and when you're talking about some of the crop which need typically like a roots and tuber crop, you need to grow a little deeper than just the the soil surface moisture. Do you see that those challenges also being solved by some of the models you have created?
So we are able to do 10 centimeter below the topsoil. Ideally you should go 15 or up to 20, but then there are certain limitations, right? We can't have everything in our life. I want to marry Aishwarya Rai, can I?
Me too.
So, I mean, some example, like it's scientifically possible. You need an X-band radar with a deeper penetration, but the X-band radar data is not a publicly available data. It's very commercial. It's very expensive. It's commercially available. So there is one space agency like collaborative effort which could help. It's called NISAR, NASA and ISRO. Their combined satellite is flying. If that data is made available, which it will be because it's a NASA mission. Then I think that problem of root zone soil moisture below, like even below 10 centimeter, can be resolved.
Perfect. Prateep, I am going a little bit off tangent, right? Because that is a very critical question, and I believe of all the speakers, right? You being the satellite scientist would be able to answer it better. You have seen that the weather monitoring and prediction, right, has gone haywire for past half a decade at least. Since I've been in agriculture, I've been observing. Do you see that getting sorted out? Because that is creating far more challenges for the farmers than the solutions. In fact, I'm a farmer now. So I got into the wrong side of the weather. I was told 16th June, the monsoon will hit my farms. And it was not till 12th of July, right? And when you start doing the sowing based on those predictions, you're having a rough time. So what are your views? We will live in those uncertainties, or do you see something happening technically?
Yeah. So I have been following the entire weather thing for a long time now. I can see a lot of different ways of doing the weather sensing. So, for example, temperature you will usually have good readings even from satellite. Okay, but rainfall, precipitation is like the biggest challenge to forecast. And unfortunately, today the climate models that we are using to forecast. Uh, those are very old models. No one has built a new age model. I mean, people have built. I mean, there is IISc and IIT Madras who are doing good research in this domain, uh, but they are not yet commercially ready. These are all deep learning based models rather than the more the atmospheric sciences climate modeling approach, which IMD basically took from NOAA. I'm being very transparent. That's how it happened. NOAA is the US agency. So you can't take the model built by US in their geography and apply it in India and see if you will get good results on a 5-day, 7-day forecast. No one will. 3-day forecast, so everyone can do it.
No, that I can do without any satellite or anything.
Exactly. Okay. 3-day forecast, anyone can do it. So I do see there is a lot of work that is going on in the academia. In the industry, I can't say everyone is trying to push my weather data is the best. None of them are. And one interesting thing which is happening actually in the satellite world is a different kind of sensing technologies from satellites. So most of the weather satellites that you have, like EUMETSAT or NOAA, they are all geostationary satellites at 36,000 kilometers orbit. Whereas there are low Earth orbit, like 600, 700 kilometers altitude, which are doing radio occultation based service. So like Spire is one company. Their services are pretty good. Maritime guys, they are using it continuously for the last many years. Then there is a company called TerraWatch. Not TerraWatch. They used to be called ClimaCell. They were using the mobile towers. Yeah. So there are different ways of weather sensing which are today getting prominent, and I do see that before I die, definitely the weather modeling could be improved.
Perfect. That's awesome. No, because that has been a big challenge, like for the farmers, especially in this part of the world, who rely a lot on the weather data. So Prateep, as usual, it always pleasure to host you, and thanks a lot for your time. And look forward to have more such interaction, and wish you all the best for the great work you are doing. And for the audience, I would love to share one thing, right? When you put something as an open source for everybody to use, right, you are doing a big service for the world, and that is what Prateep is doing. So thanks a lot, Prateep, for all the great work you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you everyone. Thanks, Deepak.
Sure, yeah. So that brings us to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. Prabhat Chaturvedi. Prabhat is the CEO of Netafim Agriculture Financing Agency Private Limited. He is the agri-rural finance professional with a demonstrated history of fast-track growth while working with some of the best organizations in Indian financial service industry. He has strong business development as well as people skill. He has risen through ranks from being a territory sales manager for fertilizers and agri-chemicals to a branch-based relationship manager to business head of agri and priority sector lending in leading banks, NBFCs, to now CEO role at an NBFCs promoted by a large PE fund, a large multinational conglomerate. Thanks a lot for joining, Prabhat, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Deepak. When you basically approached for this, I was not clear what the agenda is, what kind of audience it is. So I'll clarify in the beginning that, see, different organizations are at different phase of their development. Some organizations are at startup stage or a product stage or a proof of concept stage. For them, it's very important to showcase what they are doing and to tell the world that these kind of solutions are available. I represent here Netafim, which is globally the largest player in irrigation sector, in micro irrigation segment, and we've been at the forefront of the developments that are happening. So I would like to take a more holistic view, zooming out of the kind of discussion that was happening. Hope you can see and hear me clearly.
Yes, all clear. We can see your screen, Prabhat.
Yeah. So I would like to take a more holistic approach kind of zooming out and saying what exactly is happening. And we just heard Prateek and we heard you listing out the challenges as a farmer, how difficult it is to predict the sowing time or to sustain your crop in such difficult times, uncertain times. And we heard Prateek saying that it might be till his death. Unfortunately, we don't want that to happen soon, but we can't wait till that point in time for the weather data or the satellite predictions to be true. So it's very difficult time for farmers. Basically, I would like to focus on what kind of challenges they are facing and what can be the possible solutions, and why when we talk about irrigation, we need not talk about only micro irrigation or only one certain solution. We need to come out of this slightly myopic view and take a holistic view and incorporate that in our day-to-day working. We need to, we are all doing extension activities. We are all reaching out to farmers, all the stakeholders in agri. We need to educate farmers and these stakeholders in what is the kind of challenges which is facing them and what they need to do basically to overcome that challenge. So we all know this, we have this rising population, hunger, poverty, we'll need more food to feed them. But we are also facing kind of uncertainties, world as a whole, the hate, war, racism, terrorism, all this. And if that's not enough, we have unseen, unknown enemies like climate change, COVID, and God knows what next. You can see floods in some parts of globe, even in India, like these floods in Germany, whole towns getting wiped out. You can see droughts in green valleys of California. We saw heat dome in Canada, which is a snow-laden country, and we saw temperatures like 49.6 degrees centigrade for a week or so, and they are not prepared. They don't have ACs, they don't have fans. How do they basically, citizens who are basically well-to-do, equipped, they are not able to cope with these kind of challenges. What will the farmer do? Today we saw a video, I hope you've seen that, it's viral on YouTube, land coming up, submergence, out of submergence, in a submerged field, the land is coming up, which is unforeseen. We have not seen those kind of things happening. So we don't know what is basically awaiting us in future. And farmers are at the forefront. We know that farmers are not equipped, they don't have the tools to fight this kind of enemy. And most uncertainties that are plaguing the world today, like changing monsoon patterns or rising temperatures, uncertain rainfall, like you pointed out, when should I sow, when should I irrigate the field, uneven distribution. So it was a good prediction. I went for a crop, but now my neighboring districts are getting the rainfall, but I'm not getting enough rainfall. How do I tackle that? Flood droughts we talk about, early maturity. The temperatures are leading to early maturity of crops. The rising temperatures are having adverse impact on plant roots, and they are not able to uptake nutrients. So the yield is lower. If despite having all the irrigation solutions, I've interacted with farmers who say that the evapotranspiration is so high in peak temperature months that whatever you have, flood irrigation, drip, whatever, it's not enough to take care of the water requirement of the crop. And the water stress is so much that the crop is not able to bear it. My younger brother, real brother, manages 500 acres farm for GB Pant University, and it was on the verge of collapse because of this recent heat wave 2 weeks back. Fortunately, they have now received rain, and it's basically the crop is surviving. It's that difficult for a farmer, and they don't have means. Most of our farmers are like 85-86% are small and marginal. They don't have the resources or the financial muscle to fight it out. It can lead to their income getting reduced, the kind of water stress they are seeing, and they don't have suitable insurance products also. Despite all the accuracy in satellite imagery or the predictions, we are basically not able to offer a good suitable insurance product to farmer. That this is your min, this is your max. If the rainfall is above this, it's flood. If this is below this, it is drought. And no question asked, the claim is paid to you. Despite having a field level 1 meter by 1 meter kind of resolution visibility, we are not able to offer those kind of insurance product to farmers. How do they cope? So in my view, we need to take a holistic view. How do we reduce the usage of water? How do we increase water use efficiency? How do we replenish our natural resources? And how do we treat our wastewater to be used in farming? And this I'll be detailing in further slides. First, we all know we've been discussing this choice of crop. We are cultivating paddy in Punjab and Tamil Nadu, which are already water stressed. We are cultivating sugarcane in Maharashtra, which is a water guzzling crop. And despite all the debates, despite all the awareness, that's not changing. The governments, the NGOs, the farmers, the educated ones, on their own, they are taking care of certain things, maybe in certain pockets. Somebody's going for a maize crop or cotton crop or a pulses kind of a crop. But most of the farmers are still on sugarcane and paddy in these areas, despite all the efforts. And as a result, we are seeing the kind of water stress we are seeing. Gradually, we are seeing on ground the use of direct seeded rice increasing, use of drip in direct seeded rice. We are seeing crop diversification initiatives by government, but clearly it's not enough. The government extension machinery has a limited role to play. The private institutions, whether it is seed companies or agrochemicals companies or fertilizer companies or micro irrigation companies, they combined, put together, they need to bring this awareness in the farmer, what kind of crops they should be sowing in these areas. And this has to be above our myopic business views, because this is more important for the well-being of that farmer. If he continues to do this, he'll not be able to survive. Then we are already seeing the need for conserving our biodiversity, because all the questions that are being asked to us as Earth, answers are also there, but we need to identify and we need to prepare ourselves. We need to conserve our biodiversity. We need to find out these traits, climate smart traits, the plants which are able to withstand higher temperature, withstand extreme cold, withstand submergence in case of a flood, withstand drought in case of uncertain rainfall. Like IRRI has these genes identified for submergence, sub1, or this Oryza glaberrima, which is heat tolerant, can paddy, which can sustain higher temperatures for like a month. We need to identify these traits, whether by using conventional breeding or genetic engineering. We need to put these traits into high yielding varieties, and we need to develop more and more short duration varieties, because higher the duration, bigger the risk. And for the farmer, it's not over till he harvests and he's sure how much he has earned out of that crop. So the shorter the duration, the lower the risk. We need to develop these kind of varieties. Like for paddy, we have this Sebagi Dhan, or for drought, and Swarna Sub1 for submergence. Those kind of varieties, research people need to do, the seed companies need to do, and all of us put together. Why we are discussing this on this forum is we need to promote use of these varieties. We need to make farmers aware through our extension activities, through our field force, that these are the kind of crops you should be growing. These are the kind of varieties that you should be going for. And I feel the day is not far when you might require most of these traits in a single plant, because we are already seeing a district or a piece of land which is under drought today, and 2 months later it might be flooded because of glaciers melting and the river water coming, or the rains on hills. You might see a flood 2 months later. It can be a extreme heat situation today, and it can turn into a cold situation tomorrow, like we saw in Canada. So how do one single plant, one crop, one variety has the capacity to withstand the heat, the cold, the flood, the drought? Those kind of short duration varieties slowly we need to develop, and all of us need to promote those to these farmers. Now, knowing all this and knowing that we are under a extreme water stress situation, we are facing drought kind of situations, it should be common sense that we should go for technologies which are using water more efficiently. But that's not the case. That common sense is not very common, because 80%, 85% of India still uses flood irrigation. Even the best states where you have the micro irrigation coverage at the highest levels across India, there also At best, it is around 10% or less. So most of our farmers, whether in water stress states or in water surplus states, are still using flood irrigation. We are not going for micro irrigation, and I'll come to that in next slide. Most of our annual precipitation, hardly 20% is productively used for cropping. Almost 70-80% of it is getting wasted. The annual precipitation or the fresh water that we are getting as a country. Our requirement within this decade is going to grow by 2x, but supply is not going to grow by that same parameter. So we need to conserve on agriculture, which is the highest water consuming activity as a country. We are having some kind of initiatives like this combating desertification project between India and Israel, UP government doing certain projects, but it's not enough. And the awareness also is not enough right now on field. We all know that micro irrigation is an effective tool to fight this, but still our penetration is hardly 18%, not even 20%. In 15 years of promoting micro irrigation, despite Prime Minister himself being a strong proponent of this technology, we don't have the kind of adoption that we're seeing. We have the second highest population and we don't have enough water to grow those kind of crops that are required in future. But still, despite 15-20 years of efforts, we are not able to promote this technology effectively. We are not able to increase this coverage. There are other issues like at strategy level, maybe the government focus is there, but the execution on ground is not satisfactory. You don't have the level playing field for financiers like us. We are discriminated against public sector banks or private sector banks. The NBFCs are not treated in same way for promoting micro irrigation. That's another issue. We need to go for mass adoption of these community irrigation projects or micro irrigation systems at farmer field. We need to make it mandatory, like some states have already done. Maharashtra for sugarcane, making the micro irrigation system mandatory for water guzzling crops, and not only announcing a policy but ensuring this on ground is what is required. Despite all this, you might still need cloud seeding for a local rain or supplemental irrigation kind of solutions, like a startup AgriRain I saw, which has on call. You can basically, these guys will come, they'll set up their sprinkler irrigation system, and a pre-agreed rain, maybe a 6 inches water, they will deliver to your farm. So they are saying that even the fields which are irrigated by canal or irrigated by drip irrigation, the evapotranspiration in May and June is so high that you need this supplemental irrigation in addition to whatever you have. So those kind of initiatives we need to promote. And the need today is to treat our wastewater and use it in agriculture. Hardly 1% of that wastewater is solids. Rest all is water. It can be treated. Countries are using it. In US, Israel, Italy, the percentages are slightly higher. But in Asia, it's less than 1%. Israel, for example, is treating 90% of its water, and 45% of their water used in agriculture comes from this wastewater treatment. Can we replicate that in at least the water stress states like Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, parts of Andhra? Can we use this technology? Because otherwise the demand is going to far outstrip the supply. Can we replenish our water bodies? Some projects are happening in Rajasthan, in Uttarakhand, but it's not enough. We are not recharging, not doing rainwater harvesting. We are not recharging our aquifers enough. We don't have resources basically. Only one app I came through, which is called Bhujal app, which is for Borewell Monitoring. With an Android app, you can find out what is the availability of water in your well or borewell, and you can recharge it, and you can assess the impact of your recharge measures. We are not able to democratize these kind of technologies, and farmers are not aware basically how much groundwater they have for the irrigation. So neither we are harnessing the precipitation or rainwater, nor we are recharging the groundwater. It's all going waste, and it's not a coordinated effort that we are making. So to summarize, this threat is real. Farmers are most vulnerable. They don't have much protection. One solution alone may not be enough. We all need to collaborate. We need to find and promote these climate smart traits in our crops and varieties. We need to increase as early as possible our micro irrigation coverage through various means on ground. We need to replenish our reservoirs. We need to treat wastewater and use it in agriculture. And we all need to, together, we need to educate the farmer and make him realize the kind of threats he's seeing. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to feed the kind of population that we have. That's all I had to say. Thanks a lot. Over to you, Deepak.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Actually, I was speaking while on mute. that's unfortunately, like, I'll say that being virtual, I'll say conscious has changed. So very, I'll say interesting presentation. I just got a couple of questions because of, like, you touch upon, like, the funding part of it. Because if you read any report across the globe, right, the credit to farmers become very critical for increasing their yields, right? It's a given, whether you read FAO or UNDP or anyone, right? Somewhere in the text, you'll find that actually access to credit to the farmers. Now, you rightly mentioned that actually, like, when it is compared to the public sector organizations or banks, right, and NBFCs, there is a discrimination. What would be your, like, 2 lines or 2 cents of idea you would like to pass it on to the government, what they need to do immediately so that there is a level playing field, and at the same time, the farmers get benefit out of that?
Just 2 things, very specific things that I keep talking about. One is you are giving interest subvention to banks. If the NBFC is financing the same farmer, why that interest subvention is not available? How does it make a difference if I borrow from X or Y? If I am a farmer and you want me to get subsidized interest rate, you can provide it to both. They have around up to 7% interest subvention. So if they are financing at 11%, effective cost is 4%, at least for crop loans. If I'm financing at, say, 14%, my financing is at 14%. So gap becomes 4 and 14. So you want to increase the availability of financing to farmers, but you are discriminating between financiers. That's a policy decision that government has taken. Second is on subsidy. If I'm a farmer, I'm going for a micro irrigation system, I take a loan from you, who's a State Bank of India or a PNB or Allahabad Bank, public sector banks, I get up to 50% or 90% subsidy. If I go to an NBFC, which is readily financing, I don't get that subsidy. So why do we need to differentiate between a bank or a public sector bank or a private sector bank or NBFC when it comes to getting the finance? We are stopping that flow of funding or flow of finance to farmers. We are restricting basically more players from financing the farmer. We are relying on maybe some public sector or private sector banks to increase that fund flow by putting all sort of conditions on them, and they are not willing. We have seen all that. I need not speak about it. They are not willing. They are being forced to do all this. And people who are willing, you are restricting. I don't understand that at a policy level, but maybe decision makers need to understand that.
Super, very well articulated, and I've heard a lot of things you've been speaking about on social media platform as well. Blunt as usual, but very diplomatic. So I love what you said, actually, because I also believe, like, we are policy level, especially funding of the irrigation projects, right? You can give for drip irrigation, but you don't want to give it for smart irrigation, the subsidies, right? So there are a lot of I'll say that somebody has to put some brain in making those policies, especially in Krishi Bhavan. Thank you. Thanks a lot for your time. Really appreciate. So we would move to our very interesting part of this interesting part of this session. Like, it's going, I'll say that at rocket speed. We had some discussion about, like, hydroponics and irrigation technology. And from 25 years back to now, from Netherlands, we have Prateep talking about how satellite can play a vital role. And then we have Prabhat, who very, I'll say that perfectly covered the zoomed out view, or I'll say that holistic view of how the irrigation and what are the challenges of the farmers, and definitely about the credit and funding of the farmer. Now we are having a panel discussion with some stalwart of the industry who are having decades of experience, and a youngster who is trying to redefine how the irrigation works. So let me first introduce my panel here, and then we'll take it forward. So on our panel, we are having Mr. Surender Makhija, Mr. Surender is a strategic advisor at Jain Irrigation Systems Limited. As an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur, International Rice Research Institute, Philippines, and XLY Jamshedpur, he is the longest serving professional in India in the field of water management for over 50 years. He was member of the team that made a presentation to the Prime Minister's office on benefit of micro irrigation in 2003, which resulted in formation of large micro irrigation projects like APMIP in the country. He is been member of various committees on BIS, NCPH, Pradhan Mantri, PMKSY, and associated with micro irrigation. He has delivered over 130 lectures, presentation at various forums, and published a number of technical papers on water and energy. So we would like to welcome you, sir, on board. Next, we are having Dr. Sangita Lola. Dr. Sangita is business director at the Rivulis Irrigation India Private Limited. In a career spanning over 30 years, she has handled multifaceted assignment and was widespread experience and expertise in promotion of advanced technology in agriculture sector and precisely micro irrigation systems, solar pumps, digital informatics in agriculture, command area development, and leading transformation by intensively promoting greenhouse technology. She is pivotal in execution of micro irrigation projects, development, operation, and management of advanced Indo-Dutch practical training centers for promotion of high-tech and commercial horticulture and agri-value chain management, protected cultivation, water management, and solar pumping. And then we are having Shailendra Tiwari. Shailendra is founder of Fasal, a company which is a SaaS-based platform which ensures that we are able to reduce the need of water in our horticulture crop. He has been honored to be the under 30 by Forbes, a person who was actually trained as a fashion designer or from NIFT getting into agriculture. Welcome, Shailendra, to this panel. So with all super people already there, I would request Surender sir to start the conversation and share with us, according to you, what are the challenges faced by overall in, I'll say that agriculture, when we talk about irrigation and micro irrigation, with context of Africa and Asia, both the continent you have worked extensively, and also like add your flavor of India into it. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you for having me here. It's always a pleasure, and after listening to various panelists earlier on, I think it's a unique privilege to be here. I'm very happy with the quality of discourse being done over here, and I hope I can do justice to this presence here. Well, it's been a long journey, Deepak, and it's almost 50 years plus. But I will not go into the historics. I would like to say, in 2012, I attended a Water for Food conference at University of Nebraska. And the theme was too hot, too wet, too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry. And that's how it's happening, and we are seeing it all over. I think apart from various challenges which many of us discuss every day, this is one major issue which we have to address, and we have to kind of set our entire journey on this course to see that we don't fail with the change in the climate and what's happening around us. Here again, I would like to give example of the US. I was once traveling from San Francisco to Los Angeles. In fact, generally we travel by air over there, but then I did this journey in 2017 by road to study the impact of drought in California, of third year successive drought in California. Everywhere I saw the boards, no water, no job. Lots of other things I observed, but this stood out. And they always said that is growing crop a crime, using water for agriculture a crime. But what really stood out was no water, no jobs. And that was a fact actually, because that area is a hub of agricultural activity, but it wasn't the case there. So I think what Prabhat has said, हमारे यहाँ हिंदी में कहावत है हाथी के पाँव में सबका पाँव. So he has said all. But in fact, he has spoken for all of us but we can probably, elaborate a little more on that. What's necessary now? Let's discuss what is important. We have been talking about irrigation systems in isolation, talking about saving water. In India, as we all know, agriculture happens to be the elephant in the room, takes about 80% of the water. And with the competing demand from other sectors, now we'll have water mission and Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. This luxury will not continue. At the same time, we have the problem, the expectation that the food production has to go up from 300 million tons to about 450 million tons. The population will go up and we need more water. So how we can make both the ends meet? In fact, if you really ask me, I'm saying something very unpopular. Agriculture sector has to yield at least 10% share of its water for other sectors for this country to really grow well and to make the other programs of Government of India successful. Because we have 17 sustainable development goals, and if you take water away from all of them, they will not be sustainable. They will be simply developmental goals and not sustainable. For sustenance of all 17 development goals, we require water. So we talk about housing, we talk about women development, child development, we talk about industrial development or so, whatever the case may be. So we have to start thinking, and what really touched me from what Prabhat had said recently is that the government is not doing enough, even though we have a prime minister who himself has been propagating the use of micro irrigation for a very long time. So I think we're a little soft state in this particular respect because the government policies are there, but the implementation is slow. The adoption is slow. And the time has come for the government to take a very strong step in this direction, particularly in case of conservation of water. So one of the issues that we talk always about micro irrigation, using water more effectively in agriculture. It was initially higher irrigation efficiency, then it became higher water use efficiency, and became also a higher value creation efficiency. So currently, what we are aiming at is that we have to have a higher value creation efficiency for every drop of water that is used in agriculture, like in any other sector. When you have 1 ton of crude iron, we want to produce steel out of it, then obviously like to get more out of it. So water is one of the resources which we have to think as something which goes with the rest of the interventions in agriculture, whether it is, and this is the primary requirement. So start thinking in terms of creating more value out of it. And that is possible by having smart agriculture, precision agriculture. And we have been talking about it for a very long time. But what actually we need to do is to produce a lot more with a lot less. Lot less of land, lot less of soil, lot less of water, lot less of fertilizer, energy, human labor, and the results have to be many folds. And this is already happening in many parts of the world. So this is where we got to go ahead, and that is possible only with the help of doing agriculture, which is science-based and technology-driven. Now, when we talk about technology, the disruption or the exponential changes in technologies are so fast. But in India, the farming community is really deprived from all these changes. We have the smartphones going into the villages. We have a very big telecom revolution of digital reach to the villages. But as far as, ensuring that we are creating an ecosystem where the farmers get access to the technology, which many companies have got. And Jain Irrigation, we are obviously the pioneers in this field, and we have done a lot. And I can speak later on about it. So this is what we have got to do. And now I give it to other speaker to speak, and then we can come back later on individual cases. Thank you very much.
Sure, sir. Sound advice coming from you. I have one more aspect I would like to add here. Actually, we were doing a little bit of research because, like, I'll be talking about our analyst briefing, right? Which countries are good for scaling up and giving opportunities to micro irrigation companies and smart irrigation companies going forward. And one thing came out very clearly was that the cost of water, those countries which have put the cost of water so low that it can easily be abused, you end up innovation doesn't happen in those countries. Unfortunately, in India, we are having political limitations to talk too much on that. This is not the forum to do that. But until unless we keep on the cost of water so low or negative, where the electricity is free, you can guzzle out as much water you want from your bore wells. I believe, like, the scaling up will always be a challenge. That I'll go to my next speaker.
You hit the nail on the head. No, don't let me. This is like a 8 o'clock debate, actually. But you really, incite me into saying something. That's the moot point. Whenever I say anywhere that the political will is lacking because water has become an emotional issue, like land as well as energy also has become. Everybody wants to have right on water, right on energy, and right on land. Yesterday, I was speaking at a forum and I had mentioned that the time has come for us to start creating water grids. We have so far created power grids all across the country as such. Now time has come to convey water through pipes, pressurized irrigation, pressurized conveyance of water. And that all is possible and that all is doable if water is priced judiciously. Thank you very much.
Fair enough. Dr. Sangita, like, it's a pleasure to have you, and we had some interaction, and I believe there is a connect, right, with the Jain somewhere. So it's so, like, being the next speaker, I'll say that you can take on the baton, and ma'am, we would like to understand from you, because Rivulis has been doing a lot of interesting things, right, from sensor to, like, satellite-based irrigation solution. And I believe that, like, you cover a lot of open posts, right, to create a holistic solution, which can definitely reduce usage of water substantially. With your extensive experience, I would like to have your views on where do you see that micro irrigation not getting scaled up, and why it not getting scaled up, and what are the way forward?
In fact, Deepakji, thank you so much. It's an honor to be a part of this esteemed panel, especially when Makhija sir is here. Today's Guru Purnima, and we are a disciple of him. And we all are representing.
All of us.
We all are representing the micro irrigation companies, which by default are in a business of sustainability and increasing water productivity. All of us out here. So, in fact, Prabhat has covered almost everything and anything, but touch basing on some of the points which he has not covered. But like we all know that water is a new oil of finite source, constantly fastly depleting, aquifers are shrinking, groundwater withdrawals are higher than replenishments. But one thing which is very serious is 5 years down the line, between 2025 to 2050, we are arriving at a situation where water demand shall surpass the availability, and the country is literally staring at a water apocalypse. Already our per capita water availability, the country has gone down from water stress to water scarce level, and water agriculture intricately linked. You mentioned in your opening statement that worldwide it's 70% usage of water in agriculture, India is 90%. And we are focusing more on the sector in domestic and in the industry side for zero water discharge and all, and the elephant is the agriculture sector, which is 90% water consuming. So on the other hand, you are a part of World Economic Forum, and the risk index, which comes out every year from the WF, it has already been enlisted continuously since last so many years that water is one of the top 5 risks. So the World Bank has also come out and stated that climate crisis is nothing but a water crisis, because the hydrological cycle, it actually changes the hydrological cycle, causing long dry spells, high intensity rains. And we as a country, we are, in fact, the annual precipitation falls in just 15 days. So we definitely need this climate smart irrigation, smart farming techniques and all. But more than that, like one very interesting thing is that 110 years of monsoon average mentions that, like the country gets almost 72% of our geographical area of a country gets a precipitation of about 750 mm. And then the obvious question is, why are we as a country so water stressed and glaring at a water catastrophe when a country like Israel has average rains less than 500 mm? So the reason naturally that India is water stressed is not on account of quantum of water available, but its management and demands a remarkable transformation or tectonic shift in our approach, which Makhija said, sir already mentioned, that we need to change our approach from productivity in terms of kilograms per hectare to physical or economic water productivity, that is kilograms per cubic meter of water available or rupees of per cubic meter of water available. So that is a total shift which is required. But as a farmer, to take over, first thing is the basic starting point for any smart irrigation or smart farming techniques is micro irrigation. So a farmer first needs to go ahead with the precision farming techniques, and then you can really promote or go ahead with the farmer on the smart farming, taking it to the next level. Precision farming, we are already doing it for the last 20, 30 years, everybody in the country, Jain's being the pioneer. But Rivulis has brought in one thing, which is, like without usage of any sensors, if you have a micro irrigation systems, or even if you don't have it, at least try to give to a farmer a tool which gives him on his smartphone the map of his farm, which is an indicative map which tells a farmer what is the weather today. It's a very customized weather of a farm, how much to irrigate, when to irrigate, and a wetness index of his farm, whether he has over irrigated or under irrigated. It's a simple tool, which is a software which Rivulis acquired a software company called Manas Irrigation, and this tool, which gives information or messaging on a daily basis to the grower on when to irrigate, how much to irrigate. Now, a farmer growing sugarcane in Uttar Pradesh or in Maharashtra or in Tamil Nadu, each one of them will get the message according to the local hyper-local weather data of his farm. So it's a very customized tool, giving to a farmer a very customized solution and telling a farmer that you have over irrigated your farm or under irrigated. So this is a small technique, a small subscription based model, no hardware to be used, using just satellite remote sensing based irrigation water management or irrigation water budgeting or irrigation intelligence, you call it, whatever you call. So this is one of the tools which has been developed and applicable for 25 crops. We have been working with a lot number of farmers, because along with micro irrigation, we are giving also this, taking a farmer to a next level. So micro irrigation, Makhija sir already gave a lot of things, that pipe irrigation, canal command, modernization of the canal command area. But one very important thing is grey water for greening infrastructure. And having, it's now time to move ahead with converting or addressing the desertification, land degradation, climate control, or usage of brackish water, sewage water, grey water for the irrigation purpose, the way it is done in Israel. So irrigating the root zone, not irrigating the crop, and all the targets of the government, like doubling the farmer's income or per drop more crop, everything is achievable when you use various technologies, but put it through the micro irrigation, put it through a pipe network. And there are various schemes under the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. We have Har Khet Ko Pani, we have my per drop more crop. But at the end of the day, every project or every scheme has to be designed on a demand based, with a thought process or design on a water productivity. Suppose even if you have a pipe network from the canal to the farmer's field, the dovetailing has to be done with the micro irrigation. You have a Kusum scheme for giving free of cost solar pumps, or I think solar pumps at a very reasonable cost to the farmer. But giving a solar pump to the farmer does not help. It is only giving a farmer a tool to actually flood the farm. Can we have every scheme dovetailed with micro irrigation? That is which we look forward to, because challenges have already been explained, that operationalization of the scheme on the ground needs to be absolutely fully online and much more swifter, much more faster. Government needs to really work on it. We will not be able to meter our waters. We will not be able to meter. We are actually giving, on our one hand, we are controlling now borewell digging, but on the other hand, we are giving free electricity. So policy coherence is very important. And all the water guzzling crops notifications, which was already given the Prabhat, that sugarcane is 100% irrigated crop. needs notifications like Maharashtra government, crop diversification initiatives like the government of Haryana, who has already given some incentives to the farmer, not growing paddy and shifting over to maize. These are some of the initiatives which are required. And I think I'll come back again and let us listen to Shailendra.
Sure, ma'am. No, ma'am. Actually, I have just a small follow-up question. Like, because I've been following Mana's work very closely, and pretty interesting work. And I would like to understand a little bit more because, like, are you saying that Rivulis is trying to decouple the micro irrigation with what is being offered by Mana?
I didn't get your question. Decouple.
Ma'am, decoupling in the sense because you can Rivulis would also be dealing with Mana's software solution, the application and all that without the micro irrigation also. Did I understood correctly?
Yeah, it is a software which could be installed on a smartphone, and it is applicable for micro irrigation as well as farmers of flooding field also. It can be given to because ultimately the aim is giving a farmer a tool which is through remote sensing, how a soil could be maintained at a field capacity, and giving a farmer information of how much to water based on the crop stage. So even if you're watering through flood irrigation or through micro irrigation, any farmer can use this tool.
Perfect. Thanks for clarification, ma'am. That really appreciate. So that brings me to the youngest in the group. We all are, I'll say that old spoiled people of this industry. So let's have the fresh wave and new ideas. So Shailendra, we would like to understand, I loved your water credit scheme for the farmer, right? Totally groundbreaking, right? I've heard about carbon credits. I've heard about a lot of things in agriculture. Now somebody, a private company, and that was a startup, right? Coming out and saying that, hey, let's incentivize farmers for using less of water. Can we start from there and go back with the work you're doing? Shailendra, you're on mute in case you're speaking.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deepak, for the invitation to join this esteemed panel. When I heard back on the invitation, I came here to learn more than talk. And I think after hearing to Makhija sir and after hearing Dr. Sangita, I think that came well true. I have nothing more to add. But more to stress on what Makhija sir mentioned and Dr. Sangita mentioned that it's a unique country in the sense that we are not short of water, but the way we are using it. And water credit, in fact, was our way to release our pain in certain ways. So when we started Fasal after learning certain things, Deepak. So I graduated from NIFT. I studied production there, but I belong to a farming family. And there are certain things that you learn on the farm, and then when you come and start looking at them from a more engineering perspective or more structured thinking perspective, those same things start looking very different. When a farmer makes a decision about irrigation, there are 2-3 things that he's doing. One, he is getting the perception whether the crop requires water or not. Second, he is making a decision on how much water he has to put in the crop so that the physiological requirements of the crop are well met. Now, these two are very scientific questions to answer. And what I love the way Makhija sir mentioned that science-based and technology-driven, because that's exactly what agriculture is. Now, growing crops is a science, and then we are doing it at a 50-60 million farmers scale and 150 million hectares scale, and then that sort of made it a templatized livelihood sort of profession than the scientific profession it was supposed to be. In this process, the decision making, the quality of decision making got very, very challenged. So even though World Bank says that India is spending 90% of its groundwater that it is withdrawing from the ground in agriculture, but the question is whether the crops actually need 90% of the water. And I think within this group, everybody knows the answer is definitely no. The answer is no. And that's where, there are transformations. So all the good work that companies like Rivulis have done, all the good work that companies like Jain or Netafim have done, is they have awakened a section of farmers saying कि flood करने की बजाय अगर root zone में if you are going to irrigate, your crop still survives. And in fact, the crop produces better outcome than this entire flooding thing. And that was one round of change. I think that the realization, you'll find it funny that the reason why we started water credit as a concept was, I'm actually borrowing from what Dr. Sangita said, that water cannot be free. The perception that water is free is the root cause of all of these problems. Pani hai, dal dete hain, free ka hai, kya jata hai? I think that's where this entire mindset is a problem. And we said, if water is free and you add value to water, then will the behavior change? And in fact, if you look at it more deeply from a scientific perspective, water may be free, but the consequence of water on a crop is definitely not free. If you are over irrigating, your production goes down, your productivity goes down, you have root issues and whatnot. But that's a far cry. That's an information that requires a lot of correlation. That's an information that requires knowledge of n number of things, and that's a hard correlation to make when you are operating in a setup. यहाँ गांव में 500 किसान है और सारे एक साथ पानी देते हैं. This is how we have done this exercise. That's a hard thing to break. So we said, let's add value to water. That we will associate certain dollar value, certain rupee value with water, and let's see whether the behavior changes. And you will not believe that we did see behavioral change. The same farmer who used to question कि अगर मैं कम पानी डालूंगा तो मेरी crop खराब तो नहीं हो जाएगी, started optimizing his irrigation in the sense that हमने अगर बोला 10 लीटर पानी देना है इस प्लॉट पे, तो उसने एक दिन 8 लीटर दिया, फिर देखा क्रॉप को कोई डैमेज नहीं हुआ, 6 लीटर, 7 लीटर, 5 लीटर, और what he has optimized himself in a way and built internal confidence that if I'm actually irrigating precisely, my crop, my livelihood is still safe. So I'm borrowing it from what Makhija sir said or what Dr. Sangita said. It is an issue of mindset in the way that water is free. The moment, in fact, I was recently evaluating some more data that in Maharashtra, you suddenly had electricity not for free for farmers. And then suddenly there was a scale up in solar pumps. That suddenly the number of solar pumps that were being bought, the number suddenly increased. So I think in one way or another, what all of us have to do, and a lot of these companies have already been doing, as well as the government has to do, is that we need to have this mass awareness. Just like, we started with the idea of clean, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. I think that kind of initiative is required. First, to let every farmer understand the value of water. It's not free. We aren't thinking as a society. We are thinking as individuals in silos. कि मैं अगर 10 लीटर, 20 लीटर, 2000 लीटर, 2 घंटे, 4 घंटे पानी चला दूंगा तो देश का क्या जाता है? I think the first major value creation needs to happen in the thought process that water isn't free. Water isn't free when one farmer uses more water than he should. It challenges from the aspects of sustainability. It challenges his own crop as well. Once we have established, or once we are able to establish that thought, I think the idea of drip irrigation, the idea of smart irrigation, the idea of better productivity, this will all sink in. But it has to start somewhere. It has to start with the perception that water is not free, and that's how water credit, Fasal water credit came into picture, Deepak.
Super awesome. Now I would like to add a little bit of more on same thing. See, I happen to be from family which belongs to Rajasthan, right? So we are basically from Jodhpur, moved to Jaipur. My grandfather was so particular in saving water. Any drop, he used to get irritated, right? We do anything wrong, he'll pardon us, but if we waste one drop of water, he'll get irritated. Now I see, like, even when we are working on our farms, I'm having some MSc as agronomists, right? And they don't mind wasting water, believe me. Right, so thoda jara de dete, kya farak padta hai? Same. So what I would like to understand, have you seen that actually, like in this mindset of thoda jara dal dete hai, right? It changes with the location or the region or type of farmers, or it's all across?
Actually, it's a very interesting question, Deepak, and it's also very nuanced sociologically. So I wouldn't name the regions, but I'll tell you this, that same farmer. So I was spending a day with a farmer trying to learn certain things from him. And that same farmer, when he was making a decision about irrigation for his pomegranate farm, he was very conscious. And that same farmer, when we went in the evening to his sugarcane farm, wahan pe to drip laga nahi tha. He said, free hai, de dete hain. And then this is something that is not region specific. This is something that that I have seen in all parts, all corners of this country, wherever we are working. So I think in certain crops, Deepak, where people have understood the relation between better irrigation, and that's where, you know, all the good work that companies like Jain, etc. have done, that especially in horticulture. I mean, in horticulture, I believe the penetration of drip is more than 50%. And then the reason is that somehow in farmer's mind, he has got a view that main zyada pani dalunga to main nuksan kar raha hu. Vis-a-vis a crop like paddy, and this could be, you know, somehow a crop specific behavior. Jaise you'll find it fascinating, Deepak, that I belong to eastern part of UP. Drip irrigation is something that since I started, you know, we started with doing our own farming, and then we landed up building Fasal. But the day you start Googling, no, is the first thing that you learn about it is irrigation dena hai to drip se dena hai. But I asked my uncle, who has been growing paddy for, you know, I mean, these are all generational farmers, right? I asked him about drip, and he said, wo kya hota hai? So it is probably crop specific. I think the good work that we have done so far is that we have been able to correlate utility of water with productivity in certain crops, especially on the horticulture side. And that's where we see higher irrigation. You said you will not find a single farmer growing grape without drip. It doesn't sink in, it, that the idea doesn't sink in. But will you find a single farmer growing rice with drip? So I think it is more to do with crop specific behavior than a region or anything else.
No, perfect. Very well articulated. In fact, like, you know, we'll be talking about a few aspects of this in my analyst briefing, because we were doing a go-to-market strategy for one company who happens to be in smart irrigation. And we found a lot of different aspects, right, to picking up the market and, like, you know, to make a sales excellence strategy work, because it depends on far too many things than one can comprehend, right? And 8 to 10 points are very critical. Otherwise, you end up wasting a lot of your energy in trying to sell these smart irrigation or micro irrigation technologies, right, to wrong farmer. And believe me, subsidy or no subsidy doesn't help, right? It has to be very focused effort to sell. And in India also, like, you know, if you see the concentration of micro irrigation, it's below the center of India, right? So you have Gujarat, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, right? And the factors, if you find that why the, like, you know, 87% of micro irrigation is happening there, is the type of crop, is type of cost of water, maybe not directly paying for it, but cost of water because of other reasons. And very important, like, you know, the agronomical practices, right? So there are factors. We will talk about that in analyst brief. I don't want to take away the panel's time. So I will circle back to Makhija, sir. Sir, your final parting advice, right, that what needs to be done by all of us as an ecosystem to ensure that, like, you know, yes, government, I know that actually the policy needs to change, but what we internally as an ecosystem can do, right, to ensure that the next generation would be smiling, because whenever I speak at any forum, I say that we are the last smiling generation because we won't give any water to next generation. So your advice, sir, how to ensure my son is smiling after 20 years?
Deepak, thank you very much. In fact, that couple of things. First, I must congratulate Shailendra for what he is doing. And it brings back some very fond memories. In 1983, I was invited to a lecture at Central Institute of Agriculture and Engineering at Bhopal to speak on irrigation system. And I made some backup envelope calculations, and I spoke over there that it takes about 1,700 liters of water to make the shirt that we wear, and 90 liters of water to make the cup of tea that we drink. And the guys thought I was nuts. And next day, and I also warned that today we are talking about petrodollars, But time will come and we'll start thinking about water dollars. So the guys thought it's nuts, and next day, there were some press reporters there. It was a very big conference. It came in the newspaper. And it got reported. Luckily, I have the cutting with me. Fortunately, 25 years back, after at one British scientist working on the same thing like this bright young man is doing, got the Stockholm Water Prize. And he did the same thing when Dr. Ellen Smith, or I'm forgetting the name now. And he also said that it takes 90 liters of water to make a cup of coffee, and something. The data was different because there are different time frames altogether. So I have been working on it subconsciously or consciously about water credits. And in 2014, at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development held in Delhi, organized by Terry, I officially launched what I called as Aqua Credits. It's on video. And I said that this is what I am doing. But the problem that I faced, I hit roadblocks because I didn't have access to somebody assisting me. I had a job to do. And again, there was a mix of the gray water and the green water and the blue water and how to go about it. So I still work on that, but I'm very happy that Shailendra is doing it. So if he wants to take some, I can share those press cuttings as well as a video of 2014. And not at any ordinary conference. It is the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. And I announced that I am doing it now. Now, apart from this, see, I'm a great believer of technology, and I think there is no other way that small farmers, and there's something very common with these small farmers and very large farmers. Very large farmers in developed countries have to rely upon technology because they have no other way. And they have gone far ahead in mechanization and automation and artificial intelligence and lot many things. And what we talk about smart agriculture. Same way for making agriculture sustainable in India for small farmers and smallholders. And I mentioned earlier also, the government also saying the same thing, that we have to double the farmers' income. No, this is something which is very recent. But if you go by the various case studies of work done by Jain irrigation system on banana and various other crops like onion and all that, the farmers have already doubled, tripled, or many times their income using drip irrigation or micro irrigation system with proper fertigation and calibrated application of water with the fertilizers and micronutrients and proper, crop management services they use. So there isn't any other way. And that is what each company has to invest into. Dr. Sangita spoke about something what we call as Earth observation system for data analysis. They have something called MANA over there. Jain irrigation, we have over the years acquired a large number of small and big technological companies which are there to assist either these large farmers in the US, because Jain Irrigation is a very large company, has a huge presence in various countries, including the US. So we have a large number of, software and hardware like Jain Irrigation. Jain Irricare is something which is a homegrown software. Monitoring and control solution systems, irrigation controllers, radio control units, and sensors and NutriCare machines. I can talk for a very long time, like Pure Sense. We have some brand called Observant or Gavish, which is Israeli-based product. And all these are now being made available to the farmers in the West. And what we call as a part of what we call as Jain logic. And Jain logic is nothing but water is actually saved to utmost capacity. And we got the word we use, I'm forgetting it now, Jain logic. Anyway, the idea is that every drop of water counts and it's made to produce the maximum possible. Science, we are doing it by way of providing best quality of tissue culture plants to the Indian farmers. Hand-holding is done by, economical support. Irrigation is being done by the micro-irrigation system to the farmers. Even we complete the whole value chain by buying back from farmers and processing various, produces like onions and mango and pomegranate juices, and we are exporting it. So this is where the success of Indian agriculture lies. And if we don't make it that way, if we don't create ecosystems, we don't create, let us say, companies which are offering a complete value chain. Time has gone to be a tom-tom shop. I say, okay, I will offer you a sprinkler irrigation system or a drip irrigation system for your farm. No way. That's not going to work. A farmer, the more he invests into something, more vulnerable he becomes. Mind you, if you have, this is something which is very, very necessary and very, that's a bare truth. So the farmer has to be given maximum support, and that should come from everyone concerned, whether it is the manufacturers, whether it is the research institute, or the government. I can go on and go on, but thank you very much.
No. Perfect, sir. No, actually, definitely we would have one more session, where we would extract far more knowledge from you, and definitely Shailendra would be hearing what you said just now as a music to his ear, right? A substantial part of his business model also, is aligned to what you were talking about. So that brings me, madam, again to you. What you believe needs to be done, right, to make agriculture more sustainable, especially when it comes to irrigation and water?
Yeah. Before I actually go on to the parting thought, just to quote what our father of the nation has already quoted, Mahatma Gandhi, that the earth, the air, the water, the land are not an inheritance from our forefather, but on loan from our children. So we have to hand over to them as it was handed over to us. So like what you mentioned, we are the last smiling generation, but we have to hand over to the next generation and all these assets. My thought is, a water stewardship approach is very important. Water stewardship program, which involves collaboration with different stakeholders. Because, okay, macro irrigation is there, but a Swachh Bharat mission of government is of the top priority. But under this mission, can the government take up not a standalone project of just water recycling, but together a wastewater treatment, arid land farming, high-tech farming, and create a win-win solution to clean India? Because just throwing a small little statistics, which I got it from our Israeli counterparts, that wastewater from 25,000 people could irrigate 50 hectares of land. From a lack of people, from a village of having a lack of people, can irrigate at least 200 hectares of wasteland. So this is something which has not been thought about, or maybe it might have been thought, but it has not been implemented the way it should be. But it should be done. So this mission, grey water for greening the deserts, should not just remain a slogan. Should actually be implemented. There should actually be a scheme coming up. Then, Shailendra, you mentioned about drip irrigation in rice. Let me tell you, drip irrigation in rice is also done. Today, drip irrigation, if it can be done in rice, it can be done in any crop. And with flood irrigation, rice uses almost 3,500 liters of water, whereas with drip, it consumes only 1,000 liters of water. And today, we have in the Indo-Gangetic Plain states like Punjab, which is 100% irrigated, which is using a lot of its water for rice. And when we worked out actually how much amount of water electricity could be saved, you'll be surprised with the mind-boggling figures. Only for Punjab, when we calculated, the Bakra Nangal dam capacity is 330 TMC. Whereas if Punjab goes on for irrigation only for canoe, for sugarcane, and for cotton, which it has, it can actually save 50% of the Bakra Nangal water. It can save electricity to the tune of 150 crores. If we keep on working on how much amount of water and how much amount of electricity, and if we keep on adding value to this, it's going to be a mind-boggling figures. So I think anything and everything which is required to doubling the irrigation area with available water and doubling the farmer's income with assured irrigation and additional crop, I think nothing else I can think of other than macro irrigation. So that's what I can say, that macro irrigation, which is a precision farming, which is the first step. And then when we are able to analyze the farm pixel by pixel with the satellites, take these farmers, these macro irrigated farmers, to a smart farming. That's what. Thank you so
Ma'am,
much.
I totally agree. Like, rice is one of the crop actually I'm like fascinated with. I did a lot of work in Indonesia, in Vietnam, in Philippines, working with a project called BRIA, Better Rice Initiative Asia.
Yeah.
And in Thailand, actually, like, it is for past more than a year now, drip irrigation has been used. It's just not saving water. It reduces humongously the greenhouse gases, which has been
Gases,
emitted
yeah.
when, yeah.
Methane emissions.
And there is a, like, unfortunately, again, I interact with a lot of agronomists like who work for me, and their understanding of rice is that actually it is a crop which needs a lot of, like, flooding. Actually, it just needs moisture just like any other crop.
Exactly.
Right. And I believe, like, that is the blame also go to a lot of our educational institutions, right? They are not teaching actually the modern agriculture. They are still teaching what is convenient to them, which they have learned in 1970s. So with that, again, I'll come to Shailendra. Shailendra, your parting thoughts, because, like, I can see that what Sangita ji is saying and Makhija sir is saying, we're trying to implement that. So at least we are having two awesome mentors, right? And that's the idea of having these forums, right? To connect dots. So your views and like, of implementation of ideas what Makhija sir and Madam said just now.
So I think, Deepak, that I am sitting with such towering personalities that I want to skip out and listen, join the attendees rather than the panelists. I think I certainly agree with what Makhija sir said, that I have certain experiences to share, that right irrigation is not just about saving water, it's about saving the crop as well. It's about getting the maximum out of a crop. I mean, Makhija sir was mentioning that they have already done a lot of studies, and that are in tandem with what we study. So for every crop that we launch, we do our own experiments in multiple agroclimatic zones, in multiple soil textures, in multiple varieties, with the idea that we should be able to at least statistically collaborate, sort of corroborate what is happening to the crop. So one of the latest crops that we were studying about is mulberry. So the farmer typically irrigates like 6-7 hours a day. So we cut it down. We cut it down based on certain physiological principles that itna pani is more than enough. That number came to about 20-22% of what the farmer was doing. Now, after we did that exercise, and then we did this on quite a few number of plots, the learning was that the biomass, the leaf area, the biomass, the shoot, all of these increased actually. So what the outcome is that the moment you start irrigating precisely, you are not just saving water, but you are also saving the crop. You're saving the crop in the sense that you are able to improve productivity. So quality and quantity both are increasing. Now, when quality and quantity both are increasing, if you translate the same thing to any other crop, let's say grape, for example, if you do irrigate precisely, and then Makhija sir would probably smile on this, that if you irrigate very precisely, the bunch size, the berry size, whether you talk about consistency in the bricks, all of these things significantly improve, thereby enhancing the ability of a farmer to make money there as well. So these are such interrelated, and then think about it in this way, that a crop like sugarcane is a water guzzler. If you are all able to somehow encourage behavior about precise irrigation, whether you talk about drip, whether you talk about sprinkler, whether you talk about even changing the frequency at which flood irrigation happens, there will be massive change. There will be massive change, not just from the perspective of saving water, but building this country as well. The Prime Minister has been talking about doubling farmers' income. I believe if every farmer just starts irrigating properly, half of that battle would already be won. So we already have those answers. These are not, this is not discovering a vaccine. We have already discovered that vaccine. It's about ensuring that there is no vaccine hesitancy. How do we do that together? I think that is the question that is on my mind. And then that is where, I agree with what Dr. Sangita said and Makhija sir said, that for all of us to work together, all of these organizations, the government, the NGOs and other foundations, whether we can work together and ensure that in farmer's mind, he understands that there is value to every, drop of water, and not just from today's perspective, but 20 years, 30 years, 200 and 2000 years later's perspective. If we are able to do this in the next 10, 20, 30 years, I think the looming water crisis is more to do with our own behavior than unavailability of water. We would have solved some of these major future issues.
No, very well articulated. And in fact, Shailendra, I can tell you, it's just not these type of conferences, right? We interact a lot on ground with the farmers, right? If you get a chance, go through my LinkedIn profile. I'm with farmers doing same type of things, but fortunately in a physical mode, right? and explaining them the challenges and the value, right, of doing farming in the right way. And I fully endorse with what you said, because I've personally seen this happening in Nashik on grapes, as well as even in apples in Himachal, where over irrigation was a bigger problem we found than the under irrigation. So thanks a lot. This panel was an awesome panel. And with that, ma'am, Makhija sir and Shailendra, we'll go to our next speaker, who happens to be coming from Netherlands. He's a researcher. And so Dr. Abebe is here. He's a lecturer in water productivity and remote sensing in integrated water systems and governance department, IHE Delft. With the overall goal to address concerns of water scarcity and food security, his work is around accounting, explaining, and reducing resource efficiency gaps, yield gaps, and water productivity gaps across agro-hydrological scales. Before joining IHE Delft, Dr. Abebe was being a postdoc researcher at Wageningen University Department of Water Resources Management. He holds PhD from the University of Twente and MSc from IHE Delft Institute for Water Education in Hydraulic Engineering, Land and Water Development. Where is your doctor? You have to unmute yourself, sir.
Thank you, Deepak. Yeah, it is a very nice introduction. I can't add more. The only thing maybe I could add is originally I am Ethiopia, so I have an Ethiopian background. But yeah, all true.
Sir, I'll add, because you mentioned Ethiopia, I love Addis. I travel very often there. I work with coffee farmers there, and you have such a beautiful country.
I lived there.
Please.
Because I lived there, I worked there.
Great.
Very interesting to hear.
Sorry, doctor, to interrupt. We couldn't stop ourselves. Please carry on.
Okay, so can I share my PowerPoint?
Please, sir.
Yeah, so I do research and teaching. So yeah, we guide often our speaker with PowerPoint. Can you see my screen? Could you see my screen?
Yes, perfectly fine. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, once again, thank you for having me. Indeed, it was really my pleasure. It's also a pleasure for me to hear all the practical side. So in fact, yes, there are research which I have done, but then this time I focus only to, let's say, productivity, or how we could, performance assessment and closing productivity gap related research, also by relating that into irrigation. And of course, focus on research. I wish if I say research and practice, and I've heard already your practice, the practice thoughts and experience from you. Hopefully I will rewatch if it is recorded, and I will benefit a lot from that. So just to say a bit, my institute, IHE Delft Institute for Water Education, we teach also capacity building and research on water related. And I would say we are the highest in we produce the whole alumni we have in water education all over the globe is the highest. And please, just you can see this link. And also we are happy to have a good student and to teach or to collaborate together on MSc PhD research projects. My research, my presentation will have three main outlines: why irrigation, and then how we could monitor irrigation performance in cloud, and also management measure to improve productivity or to close productivity gaps. So just I quickly checked the FAO stats, and in fact that it shows the number, the demand for food, that is feed fiber is increasing. That is associated with means a lot of water is needed then to grow more crops. But the available resource, as we know, water, land, and also like limited resource, phosphorus, are even declining, or even due to climate change, deterioration of resources, pollution, erosion, and so on, either we are losing them or declining. So that's what we see here. And most of the production, food production this time come from the, I think I can use this one, from the laser. It comes from rain-fed agriculture, of course, to some extent also from irrigated agriculture. But we see that the amount of land hectare per person we have is declining. The black dot is showing the hectares we have per person is declining. This indicates that we need to produce more per unit area. So it's not only water, then land is also scarce. So is there any scope even to improve productivity? Yes, even just by learning from each other, collaboration and so on, and through technology transfer, you see there is a scope already. Of course, this is the global average, for instance, for rice and wheat. It shows there is an increasing trend. But are we yet into, let's say, the optimal level? Not really. For instance, you could see the spatial yield all over the globe for wheat on top and for rice at the bottom. So there is still a scope to improve productivity, because some of countries on average they are producing about 1 or 2 ton per hectare, but the others are close to 8 or 9. So yes, then what is going on? Why such huge gap is there? And that really require study and also explaining, and also trying to, let's say, get measures or strategies to close those productivity gaps. Among the research we have done with my colleague is, okay, can we apply remote sensing just rather than going only into the field, which is data intensive and so on, to map irrigation performance? For instance, this is what you see, the productivity, spatial productivity animation is from Wangi sugarcane in Ethiopia. But my presentation will be, let's say, such analysis of using remote sensing derived data. We have now large database from FAO, which is called Vapor. Can we do such performance assessment, and can we tell about equity, adequacy, if the productivity is low or not, and can we spot a bright spot where we could focus on and improve productivity? And of course, with this, it's possible to do with a number of ways, but we find, with cloud computing, even you could do it with a much less resource and also much faster. And applying this in one of the area in South Africa, in, let's say, southern part of Africa, which is Mozambique, an area called Sinavana, which is about 10,000 hectares sugarcane, and the area is irrigated by 3 irrigation technologies: center pivot, furrow, the red one, and also the green one, sprinkler. And we just run such performance assessments through cloud. So we use those data sets which are derived from remote sensing, with a different spatial resolution. So of course, the highest resolution in this case, we applied just 100 meter for sugarcane of a field. The minimum field over there is about 18 hectares. So of course, we try to validate agronomically if it makes sense or not. And also, well, in this case, there are more than 380 fields. Each they have their own starting and end dates, because all sugarcane has to work all the round. The industry, the factory has to work all the year. So it means there is different starting end date. So that's why this cloud computing, or just using, let's say, computation in computer or in programming, make things much faster and easier. So what we found, so uniformity, equity, for instance, let's say, is water used uniformly or not? Is it equitably shared or utilized between different fields, also between different, let's say, technologies? So what we found is, of course, almost the uniformity is because most of the let's say it's states managed and also pressurized irrigation systems, the center pivot and sprinkler, the uniformity is to the highest level, or we could say excellent. But the coefficient of variation, the equity, we found it's a bit, of course, to the fair side. We could say that's okay, but again, even in one of the year, which is 2016, we found there is even a little bit, let's say, increase in coefficient of variation of, let's say, water use, or what we call it equity, or the uniformity is let's say poor. And we found out that, okay, because that year there was drought, and then water was scarce, and then was not available on all plots, or even at the same plot at every corner and spot of the fields. And also we try to compute the adequacy just by computing, okay, how much water actually evapotranspire with what should potentially be evapotranspire. And then we found almost in acceptable range, except again in this year 2016, because it was a drought year, hydrologic drought year in that season. And the productivity, in fact, you see here to the left is from remote sensing, and to the right is from observed per field. And then also, of course, we found almost the same order of yield. And also it shows here that the yield from center pivot is the highest compared to sprinkler and furrow. Again, I will get back to this, comparing those technology. It shouldn't be just blind, and we shouldn't say just, okay, center pivot is best or better than sprinkler and then furrow, because there are so many underlying factors than just the technologies. And similarly, water productivity, to our astonishment, we found the productivity from furrow, what they said, it's well managed and it is high. And also we try to, let's say, target if there is any area, if there is a bright spot within the whole scheme. And what we did is, okay, each season we point out, pinpoint a coordinate which has both biomass or water productivity and land productivity the highest. We choose this way of doing because it's not only water. We know that land is also scarce, and especially given you have an irrigation scheme, and then it means the infrastructure, everything is set. It means the land with the infrastructure, irrigation infrastructure is limited, because you have just that one unless you expand the infrastructure. So it makes sense then to improve both. And then when we trace those area with both land and water productivity in the 90 percentile, we found for each technology, for furrow, sprinkler, and as you could see here, colored. So these are anyhow all benefits which we could easily handle with this programming or cloud computing. And of course, now we know which area is, let's say, performing good, bad. That is a performance assessment. But then what exactly going on and how we could improve it is always what we really need to work on. And just another work that we try to approach is, in fact, with this work, it's well, different water management and different input, and just field experiment and modeling has been worked around 4 climatic zones in Europe. And of course, many stakeholders were also involved, including even Netafim, but also universities and also sensor producer and so on. And of course, we went into the green and blue also, because it makes sense sometimes as what blue is what is what could be saved and also could be utilized for other sectors, or even to irrigate further or for other season. So yeah, we built also just a model that could split this green blue we quantify also how much is went into green blue water footprint, and also into the green footprints, and also into the gray footprint. But here the focus is more into the green and blue. And we found out technologies. Of course, this is just the result after simulation for different crops, again in different climates, maize, tomato, potato, and so on. But what we found is, of course, different technologies have different roles or amounts of, let's say, implying how much they could improve productivity, or in other way, reduce water footprint. And we saw that just 8 to 10% just by shifting from whatever existing now, like a furrow flooding irrigation, into drip trickle irrigation, could improve productivity or water footprint by 8 to 10%. And so, of course, not only technology, maybe if we consider different practice like mulching, for instance, of course, is it feasible or not? Again, would require other further research. I mean, applying organic mulching, for instance. But what we found is, yeah, up to 8% is possible. But you could imagine this is a range of values. Just I'm now speaking about average, because this vary per climatic zone as well. And then just we try to a bit to the extreme if we apply synthetic mulching, which of course again a number of comments on it, if environmental it's good enough or not, but at least to about 28% there is a potential to, let's say, improve productivity or reduce water footprint. So, well, I am trying now to wind up, but okay, data are good, and of course results and so on, but that's not really without any limitation. And of course it's a limitation, but also an opportunity for those who are making or manufacturing sensor or logger and so on. Also for those who are working on the database to improve, and also of course to make any opportunity, business opportunity out of that. For instance, the remote sensing data we have, of course, there are a number of issues with it, just from inaccuracy, resolution, and so on. And sometimes the resolution we have is, or could be crude or larger compared to what the field, the plot size we have on the field. And also sometimes with pixel we pick not just the crop, but also even other infrastructures, including drainage canals and irrigation canals or other irrigation infrastructure. So it means clearing those data and, let's say, making them neat and having them, and also advising based on those clean information or clean good data could be a way forward. But in this case, anyhow, there are also limitations for our study or for any other study if we haven't yet cleared those issues. And the other is in situ measurement. That's really, of course, remote sensing. We could get a number of data just from space, but not really everything. And there are still we require data, sensor, and so on, and also even farmer practitioners, whoever who is doing things on the ground. But we couldn't take everything again for granted as everything is correct, because especially in some areas for yield, they could be under or over reported because of certain different other reasons. Even in research center, of course, sometimes the experiments, the yield is estimated only from 1 meter square, and that is to be considered to work for the whole area. But again, uncertainties are there as well. So anyhow, but still, it's I should stress that data are really important to improve the design, implementation of irrigation system, and also operation. And again, of course, beside our analysis and data, improving productivity require beyond just irrigation water management. So so it's not just only water. So inputs and supply markets link, those are issues, and also labor, for instance, the irrigation can be more attractive to younger, and if not now only a bit older, or well, let's say senior people are working not only on the ground, but also even it could be toward this education. So I think the more we are coming with smart irrigation automation and app development, so the more and more youngers will be attracted. Of course, here maybe you don't see me. I am, I think, before 15 years when I start working on this automated irrigation. So such kind of anyhow things, I think for me also it was eye-opener and entry for the whole irrigation career I came through. So in general, all irrigation informatics, but again stressing collaboration even among researchers, because not only water manager or irrigation engineer, but also agronomy or even environmentalists, and also producers, the farmers, also hearing them and considering them all, let's say, a multidisciplinary and involvement of relevant stakeholders are important. So with this, I will just wind the lesson learned from my presentation. There is no one irrigation method that stand out from, for instance, from our analysis to be the best in all indicators that we have assessed. This has to do, and that's what one is, because of course still more data like sensor and so on from the ground are really relevant, but also from the it's not only irrigation methods which affect performance. So who is operating it, and is there also good input linkage, or is there also, let's say, good policy supporting farmer, or is there any market linkage that give incentive for farmers to really do good on their plots? That all will affect the productivity, not just simply irrigation methods. So the study showed the potential use of big data, including remote sensing derived products, to assess productivity target and to identify bright spots from which best management practice could be identified. So, however, determining the underlying cause for performance variation, which can cause by different factors, require in situ observation. So again and again, so data from the ground and irrigation informatics, I see, let's say, as a potential to do such analysis and also to attract the youngsters into the irrigation system. And last but not the least, irrigation is key to ensure food and water security, yet multidisciplinary research and engagement of relevant stakeholders are important. With this, I close my presentation. Whatever time if remains then would be used for question and answer.
Thanks a lot, Doctor. It was really very interesting presentation, and data-driven agriculture is always critical, and I strongly believe that the data which is shown in research, that would also open up a lot of eyes, because sometimes it's very important that actually when you have facts in front of you, then assumptions, which has been a chronic problem with agriculture, can be put on side. So thanks a lot. Unfortunately, we don't have much of time, so we would go to the next speaker.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. So thanks a lot, Doctor.
Okay, you're welcome.
Perfect. So we have our next speaker, Oleg Korol. Oleg is CEO of Tevatronic Limited. He's skilled sales and business manager with 13 plus years of experience in software development and software development management. He's currently leading the business development effort for Tevatronic, which is a world innovator in autonomous 3D irrigation systems. He has specialties in new business development, agriculture, irrigation management, drip irrigation, business strategy, and computer programming. So floor is all yours, Oleg.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to say that I was listening to the discussion for a while now, and it's interesting to me that it doesn't matter where this kind of group organized. the problems are the same. So I had the same discussion in California, the same discussions in Israel, in India. Now I hear it's always the same problems, the same issues that farmers have, and the reaction of the market is very interesting to watch in all kinds of different areas in the world. Okay, so thank you for having me. Let me share my screen, and I will start with the presentation. I will try to keep it as text-free as possible, so it will be a bit easier to digest. And about at the end of it, we will have some numbers, and we will look at basically what the panel was talking about, but in numbers. How does it actually works in the field? What I would like to talk with you about today is our experience in experimenting on sugarcane in India with EID Perry, one of the bigger manufacturers of sugar in India, as far as I know. And we will go through how this entire process went, how it went, and what we learned, and what we done since then. So if there are any questions, you're welcome to write the questions, or from the panelists, you're welcome to ask them. Hopefully, it will be enough time for the Q&A session as well. So about in 2018, I was invited as part of our effort into India to look at sugarcane and see what would be the benefit of investing in technology in sugarcane, both from the farmer point of view and from other stakeholders. So we went around, we watched some bananas, we looked at how they grow bananas, and looked at some sugarcane and the technology that it's all behind all of this, which was very interesting as far as the tour goes. But then we went to a certain field. Now, if you take a look at this field, you will see that there is a small issue on the field that you might notice. This is a drip irrigated field, which is completely flooded. As far as I understood, what happened there is that the farmer that installed this new drip irrigation system and was told that this will save a lot of water for him, basically it turned on the irrigation and waited until the field would flood, exactly as he is used to doing anyway, right? So it saved him a little bit on employing workers for the furrow irrigation, but the bottom line, this is not the correct use of drip irrigation. The point of the drip irrigation would be to use it correctly. And from there came the problem of installing the smart infrastructure is not always enough. You need to do more. And there was a lot of discussion on this panel about what else can be done, sensors, etc. And we will see what is our solution to this specific problem. So, a little bit about our system that we have implemented. The system is divided into two subsystems. One is the smart irrigation controller, basically an autonomous irrigation controller, where the system decides on its own when to irrigate and how much, and the decision support system, wherein we install a lot of sensors into the field, and we collect the data from the sensors, which then can be provided to the farmer as a data support system, decision support system. This is the structure of the system. When we're talking about decision support collects data through our gateways and transmits the data to the internet for the farmer to use. And the installation is basically the sensors are installed in the field in each section, the data is collected, and displayed for the farmer. Now, the autonomous irrigation system, the smart irrigation, works about the same way. It's the same equipment, but it also has an RVC unit in it. Basically, the ability with the same system to open and close valves and hence connect to the actual irrigation system and supply the field with water. And this, how would an installation like this look? The RVCs would control the valves, and the sensors would transmit the information to the cloud, which the cloud would make the decisions. Now, the operation of the system is based on a very specific physical principle, which I will not go into very deeply. But the idea is basically measure the way the plant uses water instead of measuring how much water there is in the ground. We're talking about measuring the way that the plant sucks water out of the ground, the pressure that he creates. The idea behind this is that the plant can actually control this process via special parts of the leaf of any plant. And by controlling this process, it can transmit to us the stress that the plant is in. Using the stress, we can both decide when to start irrigation and when to stop it. Basically, when stress goes over a certain level, irrigation starts, and once the stress is reduced and we have irrigated to a specific depth in the ground, we can stop the irrigation. This is just a general overview about the system so that we will understand what was done further along. I can see that I think we will have enough time for this. So this is how the farmer would see it. You can see that the stress level in this specific area goes up, irrigation starts, the stress goes down. You can see that the amount of irrigation, which is indicated by the blue bar, is always changing depending on the situation in the field. And also the distance between two irrigation points changing. Basically, if you irrigated a lot in one day can be skipped. Okay, so let's get to the actual trial that has been done in the fields in India, where we have tested this technology with the intent of understanding what would be the benefit to sugarcane from this kind of technology. We have tested both the DSS mode of the system and the fully autonomous mode of the system. So this is the setup. We have a field. In this field, each area in the field has one sensor for the autonomous system. And each area that works with decision support has two sensors for measuring the way that water moves through the soil. Okay, in addition to the main field, we had installed additional sensors in farmer fields, basically fields of farmers that already operate, and they are commercial farmers, in which we were testing will this DSS system without the fully autonomous control benefit the farmer, assuming the farmer, of course, follows the recommendations of the system. And those are the results. As far as water savings go, in different sets, in different settings of the system, we can see what the farmer did, basically drip irrigation by the farmer, and then drip irrigation based on autonomous inputs from our system, and how much water was used, and savings of as many as 90% on water in the extreme cases. Okay, furrow irrigation was also used for autonomous irrigation with the system. This was a bit more complicated mode because of the nature of the infrastructure or the lack of it when dealing with furrow irrigation. But even there were significant savings of water. Now, obviously, water itself is not the most important part for the farmer. where we also need to talk about yields. Now, since the experiment was going in such a way that we wanted to learn what would be the optimal conditions to operate the system in India, we set up the operation in such a way that each one of the plots was getting different settings, irrigation at different pressure level, at different thresholds. And what we got as a result is that autonomous drip irrigation was twice as efficient at using drip irrigation from the water point of view when the yield was as good or better. In furrow irrigation, we had to go to 30 and 35 centibars, where the yield was the same or better. And again, the amount of water that was used was twice as low. And then we calculated the efficiency of each ton of produce to the water that was used. And you can see the efficiency rates go significantly higher at the higher centibars. Of course, in those cases, the amount of water that was used was low, but the crop has also suffered a little bit. Let's continue. Now, from the point of view of sugar recovery, we can see that in autonomous irrigation, on average, sugar recovery was 0.4% higher, and the CCS was higher from the farmer practice. And to make the long story short, you can see the percentage at which each of those sugar recovery setups has worked. So we can see that in furrow, in some settings, the production was better with sugar recovery, and with some was less efficient in the autonomous system. Now, what about the farmers? We installed this DSS system without the autonomous irrigation, just very simple setup to give farmers some additional data. We can see that in those cases, the savings of water, this is in cubic meters of water, were significant over the season. Now, in addition, the yield with the DSS system was on average 12% better for the drip irrigation. This is in farmer field, not in trial test, and 22% higher with furrow irrigation in comparison to the field of the same farmer. Now, all of this, of course, translates into money, which stays in the farmer's pocket. And we calculated how much money would actually stay with the farmer by using this system through the season. We can see that on average with drip, it's about 13,000 INR, and with the furrow, about 25,000 of additional gains by using the system. And the quality of the sugar, we can see that the CSS in drip irrigation was about 130%, meaning that the quality of sugar recovery was much better with using the DSS in drip. So basically, this is a benefit on top of drip irrigation. But the more impressive numbers that we got were the sugar recovery and the CCS numbers for furrow irrigation, basically the way that the farmers irrigate today, where we achieved much higher improvement of up to 135% on average, and meaning that the quality of the crop increased significantly, while, of course, as we saw before, the amount of water that we used was much smaller. And this connects beautifully into what was said before on the panel. The question of over-irrigating is not just a question of wasting water. It's also a question of damaging the crop and damaging the ability of the farmer to feed his family, right? the correct use of water will solve a lot of problems as we see it. And there is a lot of further technologies we feel that can be introduced to optimize this entire process significantly. So the summary of the results, the DSS system, the simplified version of the system showed that it can significantly benefit the Indian farmer, specifically in furrow irrigation, even without upgrading into drip, although of course upgrading to drip will give additional benefits and will reduce significantly even more the amount of water and more consistent yield on crop. The benefits are through the entire ecosystem. So the crop quality goes up, so it benefits the yield to the farmer, it benefits with the sugar quality to the mill, and it benefits society in general by using less water. And of course, I would like to say thank you to our teammates in the CID Perry, which helped us set up all of this and monitor this this process. And okay, that's okay. So, and thank you all for listening to me. I wish you all the best. If you have any questions, you want to discuss anything, you are welcome to either call me, send me an email, and I will be happy to answer any questions if there are any and if there is time.
Yes, sure, Oleg. There is a question. So this decision support systems, like they are based on models, right, and a lot of data. How scalable it is for other crops? Because you have very well explained about the value and the positives in sugarcane, and I'm pretty sure it would be in other crops as well. But do you have DSS models for other crops as well?
So yes, the nature of the sensor that we are using is such that it operates basically the same way with any green type of plant. So as long as the thing is in the field and it's green, it will basically operate the same. The thing that will have to be done with the new crops, and here I'm assuming the question is about a crop that we're not currently operating in. With the new crop, we will have to set up a basic installation, the same one that we did right here, to find the optimal settings for the use of this system. But the bottom line is, depending, of course, on the crop, one season would be more than enough to show what are the close to optimal settings that need to be used, as the system will manage itself automatically depending on the settings.
And how the divergence of the climatic conditions and the soil type for the same crop are achieved?
So again, the soil type will not be as much of an issue, because bottom line, what we are measuring is pressure, and pressure is the same through the soil types. There are some extreme cases in soil types where the particulates of soil are not actually holding any water, and then things change. But when we're talking about this, we're more talking about Israel, where we're basically growing things in sand, pure sand without any kind of soil. But without this kind of extreme case, the numbers that you can get to are more or less the same for the entire crop and for most of the areas. And the climate, the situation of the climate is not an issue, because basically what we do is we use the plant itself as the sensor for the climate. So if the climate changes and the plant is in more stress more often, the system will compensate for this automatically when we're talking about autonomous mode. But if not, then in DSS, there is a way to look at this and to cap the damage that can be done by climate change in the DSS setup.
What are the crops which are ready to be, like, in which it can be used in a country like India straight away?
So again, with the crops that we're currently working in, it's any kind of vegetable. We're working with vineyards, with bananas, with As you saw, sugarcane and quite a few more. There is a significant list at this point. We have been doing this for a while.
Super awesome, Oleg. Pleasure having you on this session. And I believe we grow a lot of sugarcane. So at least I can straight away see a lot of opportunities for collaboration and partnerships going forward. And unfortunately, sugarcane is grown in those belts where the water is a big problem. So when you are able to reduce the water demand by 90%, I believe we have a winning formula. So thanks a lot. Pleasure having you on this session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care. So this brings us to the last session. And for this session, I happen to be both the moderator, the host, as well as the speaker. The idea of this session was actually like, we at HnyB, we do a lot of research. And that research is focused on a few areas. And those areas are how to ensure that the innovations in technology can also become innovations in business. And this is where actually we work on. So typically, like HnyB work on intersection of agriculture and technology. And the whole idea of what we do is that to ensure that we bring good technologies, make them scalable, and ensure that those who are innovating those technologies, they get right value out of that. So we typically are a company which do research, consulting, adoption of technology, and digitization. So let us just straight away get into the area of interest for all of us. So here what we have done is that actually we have tried to work and based on our research, identify what are the opportunities for micro irrigation and where are the regions actually where the real opportunities are there. We do very extensive research. Here I'm just trying to summarize it in a few minutes. Which will give you scope of work we are capable of doing, and which I'm pretty sure would interest a lot of irrigation companies to work with us, because we try to work as an extension of their business development teams. So if you see that the global market, while definitely these numbers, when you try to compare with a lot of other market researches, would be different because each research has its own way of working with. Our way of doing is that actually we use a lot of primary source of databases from Hoovers to the balance sheets of the company and the sales they have done, to the typical interviews with the CXOs of the companies, to also those in the policy making. So typically we are seeing that 12.8% compounded annual growth rate would be there for next 5 years when it comes to the global market for micro irrigation. And here micro irrigation, we are talking about the rain guns, we are talking about the sprinklers, we are talking about the drip irrigation, all put together. So which are the sunshine regions, right? So for I'll say that our own understanding, we are seeing a lot of activity happening in Southeast Asia. So typically, this is the region which you already is having 37% land irrigated, but majority of it is still not having micro irrigation, and the water stress are increasing there. And we see over next 5 years, there would be substantial increase in demand for micro irrigation in Southeast Asia. When coming closer home, South Asia, we are looking at 10% growth over next 5 years. It's year-to-year basis. North Africa is another sunshine area where you are finding that there is a lot of improvement happening in the infrastructure for micro irrigation. And this is where we also see a lot of growth happening when it comes to micro irrigation. Sub-Saharan Africa, unfortunately, still lagging a bit. Opportunities are emerging in some bright spots. We'll be talking about those countries as well. But generally, you'll see that actually they are the biggest, I'll say that they are at the bottom of the regional list. South America, around 11%, Europe 13%, and America 9%. Europe is 13% predominantly. It is because they are adopting to new smart techniques. So this is more to do with adoption of new technology rather than actually trying to fill the gaps. Now let's understand, go to the country level, and we have identified some of the countries because rather than talking about 54 countries, we try to analyze in the area we work, typically Africa and Asia. If you see that the brightest spots are Vietnam and Saudi Arabia, where we are seeing that over the next 5 years, close to 18 to 19% year-on-year growth would be there when it comes to micro irrigation. The next happens to be Indonesia and Egypt, where again 14.9 and 14.6% year-on-year growth is visible. India is around 10.8%. But if you see the size of India and Indonesia, which is, for example, India is close to by government data, 130 million farmers, and Indonesia 55 million farmers. they are big belt. Vietnam, again, you're looking at close to 20 million farmers plus. So these are large areas. Coming to Africa, we are seeing the highest growth happening in Ghana. Ghana, like, typically you see that in northern part of Ghana, there is a lot of activity happening, trying to convert the conventional irrigation to micro irrigation. Kenya, predominantly it's happening in floriculture and horticulture areas. And Ethiopia, you're again seeing that because of climate change, there is a substantial drop in the productivity of coffee. And because of that, you're already seeing a shift where farmers are trying to adopt new techniques, including smart farming, at the same time also micro irrigation. Saudi Arabia, the 19% growth is predominantly coming from the government's projects. And these projects are more of like, greening Saudi Arabia. So one area is like, where they are trying to put a lot of forestry. They are trying to make a lot of green zones. And there they are using extensively the micro irrigation. Egypt predominantly is seeing a lot of stress when it comes to water. And though stress was already there, but it has substantially increases even in the typically where the Nile flows. And this is where actually you are seeing a lot of activity happening. And again, you can see substantial growth there. Predominantly this growth, if you see that, like, substantial part of it is coming from citrus and horticulture. So this is where it is working very well. Vietnam, predominantly, if you see that in the southern Vietnam, typically like, Mekong Delta belt, you're finding a lot of investments happening, typically in a community farming mode, where you again see 18% growth when it comes to micro irrigation. Indonesia, there are a lot of support from development agencies, and the government is also supporting initiatives to ensure that, like, the water can be, the use of water in agriculture can be reduced. Predominantly, these 17,000 beautiful islands, they had no scarcity of water because of substantial rain. But the challenge is that because of the terrain, that water doesn't stay. So now the modern agriculture practices are being used. Typically, if you see that in both East and West Java and Sumatra, a lot of investment has been put in micro irrigation. In India, we all know that, like, predominantly you are seeing the Western India, typically Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu. This is where the maximum also that growth is happening. But the states like Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, they are gearing up, and there also the growth has improved in past. But again, in India, there are two challenges. One is that actually because the sales of micro irrigation is predominantly based on the subsidy model rather than actually, like, the real value being delivered to the farmer. And this is where we as a HnyB, like, you try to help and give go-to-market strategies to company to identify the right types of crop, right type of area, where the potential can be unlocked, and the sales team can be more effective rather than spreading thin and selling to everyone. Try to be more optimized because the market is huge. Players are not too many. I'm talking about good players. And there is a possibility of creating far more value from the sales team than what has been derived currently. Now, we also did actually, like, typically identify the factors, right, which should be driving the sales of micro irrigation, and the teams need to understand that. And we have typically worked on these 12 areas, and these factors were analyzed for different regions as well as different countries. So one is definitely the market size, which is very critical. Second is the growth potential. Third is the cost of water, which we have dealt with in initial discussion as well. Agriculture economics, now that is also very important. In the countries where the farmer incomes are pretty low, and they are sustenance farmer, and they depend a lot on subsidies or support from the government, again, you see a little bit of challenge in adoption of micro irrigation. Policy environment, that is another factor which is very critical. Then the agronomy, that also impact, because if the farmers are for decades are doing also that activities in a specific manner, to create the change management in them is also a little bit of challenge. And this comes where in those countries where the average age of farmers is more than 55 or 56, there this challenge become a little bit more. Then the water infrastructure itself, if you don't have access till the last mile, even improving last mile is not going to help. And this is predominantly, you'll find that countries like Laos, Cambodia, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Madagascar, Mozambique, the last mile, or say pre-last mile water infrastructure is patchy, and that's why the adoption is a challenge. And that is also is very easily visible when we say that overall Africa is like around 9% of growth year to year in micro irrigation. Political stability, because if politics is not allowing people to go there, and here I'm talking about typically conflict zones. We are not talking about if democracy is having a A as a prime minister or B as a prime minister. We are talking more of typically civil unrest as well as typically the conflict zones, where the deployment itself becomes a challenge, even if we have everything else in place. Then the farmers' demographics. Funding is also one of the area we found, though it is not of very high weightage, but it is a challenge in those countries, which depends heavily on the donor funding. So funding becomes a critical challenge. Then the input costs. Some of the countries have very high, typically barriers to import, which increase the prices of micro irrigation equipment substantially, and that also becomes a big deterrent. And then the availability of overall ecosystem. So predominantly, if you see that these 12 factors impact how typically the micro irrigation market would look at. Now, what we have done is that all the countries which we believe were having the highest opportunity in the regions we work, we have tried to put it in based on the potential versus the technology advancement. So if you see that the high potential when compared to other countries we are talking about is there in Ghana, Kenya, Ethiopia, India, where the technology advancement requirement is not very high. But as you move towards the right, Vietnam, Indonesia, Egypt, and definitely Saudi Arabia, here you're talking about people are more, I'll say that, inclined towards using smart irrigation or typically data-driven irrigation and those type of technologies. So more advanced technology you have better chance of sales in these countries. And so this was actually the brief we wanted to this was the idea was to just talk about the snapshot of what we are capable of doing. And as a company, actually, we work in opening markets, so go-to-market strategies, whether it is country basis, a region basis, or even a state basis, or a specific, I'll say that sub-region or a district basis. We create a lot of insights in form of reports, advisories, analysis. We also do a lot of support in agronomy itself, trying to create toolkits for companies to put across those, I'll say that training modules, where their systems can be used and can be adopted by the farmers on ground. We also get into a lot of projects. So we are into the farming. We are working with community farmers. We are working with corporate farmers as well. And then we create platforms like this, which we are currently talking about, trying to exchange information with the stakeholders and create a valuable ecosystem where everybody can get benefit out of that. How do we roll out? It's we have different services and it's modular. Different companies can use our services, for example, from market mapping to the business models, tech strategy. And tech strategy is more important because it's if you go with the wrong technology, right, to a right market, still you won't be able to sell. So awareness, creating awareness of technology, creating the value proposition for a specific market, all those type of things we do. Then go to market strategy, identifying partners and helping in negotiating deals with the partners. We work on regulation and compliance for new markets, revenue activation, pilots and scale-up, growth hacking, and organization building. So this is our footprint. So typically in Africa, we have decent access, understanding, and network when it comes to Ghana, Ethiopia, Egypt, Madagascar, Kenya, South Africa, Zambia, Angola, Mozambique, and Nigeria. In Asia, predominantly India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Singapore, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, UAE, and Saudi Arabia. Singapore, we specifically mentioned there is hardly any agriculture, but we also work with those who are into alternative agriculture or controlled agriculture, typically vertical farms, hydroponics, aeroponics. So those type of companies also we work with. So this is where the Singapore is also mentioned. And we are having me and my team, I won't say that as a HnyB, but we are talking about more of our team. So we are having learning from close to 300,000 farmers, network of 300 plus global agriculture business CXOs, experience of working in 16 countries, insight from close to 1 million hectare land. We are having various stages of commercial engagement in 3 continents, knowledge of 40 plus agroclimatical zones, understanding of 50 plus crop value chains, work with 40 plus agro ecosystem players. And I'd skip this. With that, we would like to thank you for having a patient hearing. And I wanted to finish dot on time, so it's 6:59. So I was able to do that. So please write to me in case you see that there is any possibility of working together. And with this, I would like to thank all the panelists and thank you for being here. Makhija sir, it's a pleasure to have you, Dr. Sangita, Dr. Abebe, Oleg. Thanks a lot for being here. It was a pleasure to host all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really
Thank you very much,
enjoyed
Deepak ji.
being here.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Neeraj. Take care.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Thank
Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah.